Live from PressCorps World Headquarters, this is Zero Dark PressCorps. It's a live post-war call-in show, hearing your first-hand accounts and war stories of battles from the previous conflict. So join the Discord right now through the link below. Hop in the general voice channel and get ready to share your stories. And now, your host, 9-time winner of the Geoffrey Jennings Award for Excellence in Journalism, Geoffrey Jennings.
Well then, welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. Just as the man said in the theme song, this is our 16th episode here, covering the recent 49th conflict that just ended. And my goodness, we've got a whole list of callers, of which I need to open up the call queue. They're all chomping at the bit to get in. Let's see if they'll get in before. Oh no, it's not Spots this time. But in any case, we'll see how that goes along. But we are joined by special guests, KrazyFlyinChicken of the development team, and the community manager, as well as Matt of the development team. And Matt, what is your official role, or do you have one?
I don't know that I do have one. I am Jack of all trades.
Yeah, there you go.
I think I write it. I always write lead level designer and writer, and that's kind of where I leave it. But I do a lot of other stuff.
Level designer. That is a legacy term from other video game developments, because what levels are there in Foxhole? There's the one level. I consider
like map design as level design.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, that's a tricky. It's a tricky thing because there isn't like set roles in video games, right. So every company has their own thing. But I like the term level design as like a theory, so that's why I like the title.
I like
more than that. He's the lead level designer. Like, he's got a whole team on.
There you go.
At least 1.5 people.
And a half? Someone in a wheelchair?
Whoa. Yes. Wait, hold on a second.
Not that they're half a person.
Yeah, sure, you can't take that back now.
Amputees. But in any case, before we get to calls, and believe me, we're going to get to a lot of calls tonight, I actually had a few questions that I've kind of siphoned from the community, and I've kind of reworded them to be a little less energetic. But I thought while we have the opportunity here, we'd ask KFC and Matt about certain things about the development. So we'll get right to it. This first couple of ones concerning efficiency. For either of you, what is the current opinion of efficiency among the development team?
I have a whole thing I can say about that, but maybe Matt has something he wants to say first. You don't have.
So this is not my wheelhouse. Sure. Efficiency is like something that I basically don't involve myself in at all. But my understanding is that it seems to be pretty much working as intended for like the outcome. Now the method might be something that needs some work, and KC will know a lot more about that because he has his hands dirty in it. So.
Yeah, and I think you really hit the nail on the head. I think this is something that a lot of people have been really hoping to hear. We've been saying it, but maybe in not so clear terms, is that it is working but we're always working on it. Efficiency is not an ideal system, but it does get the job done. Some things that we've been working on recently that's not as obvious is we've got some back-end data points now releasing with this new patch that should be able to help us track the effects of efficiency a little bit better. So hopefully later on down the road we'll be able to share those data points with you. But right now it's like we've only got a couple of them, so it's not going to help us much. But one thing I do want us to focus on, I know efficiency is the major complaint here, but something that has come up from this most recent war has been that it is the first time in a very, very, very long time that a war... Actually, you know what? It's the first time in my memory where a war has lasted from the release of one patch all the way to the release of the next. Like, I don't think this has ever happened in Foxhole's entire history before. And whether or not that's related to efficiency is not necessarily clear. But certainly it's one of the factors involved. And it sort of turned the complaint from, wars lasting too short to, these wars are boring and stalemates kind of suck. But, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm looking at this like time lapse of like the map, and that the fact that there was even the possibility for a comeback is really cool, and that's I think what we mean in that it's like effective enough that it isn't just like a snowball that happens immediately. And I do think that it is the first. I think it is the first time that a single war has lasted from patch to patch. I don't think this has happened before.
Yeah, so map courtesy of foxholestats.com. Shout out to Hayden, of course, as always. You can download these yourself. It's an MP4 file. It's amazing tool. Honestly, I really hope that you guys run Foxhole Stats out of business by implementing all these things officially into the game. But no, really, shout out to Hayden. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, you gentlemen pretty much answered my questions right off the bat there. There's
one more thing I want to get through with this. This is something that I think is really exciting about efficiency, and I know that, like I said, it's a complaint, so it sucks. But one thing that I find really exciting about what's coming for efficiency is that the problem we have to solve right now isn't, wars are too short or that there's no comebacks. I mean, maybe like I said, maybe efficiency is related to that, but who knows? But right now, it seems to be that our design focus is on how do we break stalemates, which in a fun and exciting and an organic way. And I think that is a really cool design problem for us to start tackling. We're not worrying about port bases anymore. We're not worrying about the 2-day wars. We're not worrying about the logistics. Well, we are worrying about logistics, but in a different way. So we can start focusing now on things like logistics and those cool new things. And I'm sure everybody in the audience has at least 3 different ideas for something we could add that will break a stalemate. And that's what we'd really like to turn our focus on. Not so much the efficiency itself. We will continue to tweak it, but we'd really like to look at other more exciting ways to solve it.
So is it safe to say that efficiency is here to stay for the first half of 2020 at least?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Matt said at the very start, it's definitely working as intended right now. We're definitely going to continue to explore it for at least the next little while. But I think the likelihood of us pulling it in any near war is very, very, very unlikely.
Let's just say, like anything, is not perfect. And we are going to, I believe that we are going to probably continue seeing tweaks on it pretty much every update. I don't think that's a stretch to say.
Yeah, and the efficiency really is one of those reality checks that I've noticed in anything really, but I guess in game design where, I mean, KFC, you've admitted to yourself that efficiency is a violation of the team's design philosophy, but it just had to be forced in there.
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to the FAQ for our for the game, it shows our design philosophy. Yep, on the Foxhole game website, there's an FAQ. Right? Yeah. If you go on there and you look at the FAQ, you can see the design philosophy, and certainly this does violate a few of those rules. But in a few cases where we do have magical solutions, it's always to address a magical problem, something that exists outside of the game that we can't resolve with realistic solutions. Something like, for example, the magical borders when you're traveling between regions. That's like, we couldn't get around it, so there's this magical border that transfers you. And in this case, the magical problem we're trying to solve is, people are logging on in the middle of the night and taking all of your stuff. The overpopulation, like, people need to go to work, so they don't always play in some parts of the day. And sometimes one side gets steamrolled because the other side just has a lot more players on it. And these are all things that we can't resolve inside the game's inside that design philosophy. So efficiency is our way to sort of mitigate those problems, or at least hopefully mitigate those problems.
Mm-hmm. Well, then we'll keep on going along here. I guess I'll only do one more question here because we definitely want to get to our calls, but I think just getting some of the most pressing things out to our from the community that I've gathered. There we go. It's always good to touch in the early part. But yes, upcoming War 50, the 50th conflict here. That's a milestone without a doubt. We'll see how exciting it gets. I have the map layout on the display now. You can watch it on your radios. Only 4 regions are culled out this time, so it gets a little skinny in the middle before branching out, and a lot of exciting options here. So I guess again, to either of you, what was the thought process behind this map layout, and I guess going into any map layout?
So I think this was something that Mark really wanted to see, and I'm gonna be on the record and saying, like, if I had my way, and people aren't gonna like this, so I'm just gonna say it though. If I had my way, we would never do any culling of maps. I think the map works better when it's full, but there are things that don't totally support it right now, so I understand why we have to do this. This is a cool layout. It's one that we haven't seen, and I really like the fact that it sort of changes shape, which a lot of our map layouts don't.
Yeah, we'll see how that meat grinder goes in the middle, if it will be a meat grinder or if it'll just spill over immediately. But yeah, no, Warbreaker Owls is gone. I think that's one of my personal favorite ones to traverse, simply because there's so many great hideaways to go on to. But yeah, I guess, is it just however the thought process is it just a matter of, hey, let's just try this, just see how this goes, or is it more nuanced than that in terms of the decision?
Oh, it's more nuanced than that. There's
a
lot of, like I said, efficiency was one of them. This last war was ideal for our length, right? We wanted a war to last about a month, and this one lasted about a month. It was perfect. Now the question is, was that all efficiency, or were there different factors at play? And we are, as you can see from the patch notes, we are playing with certain factors to see if, like, how we can change the outcome, the duration of the wars, how we affect the player experience from it. And this was just one more factor we wanted to experiment with.
Yeah, well, we'll get to our calls in just a moment. But I guess you could compare it to, I mean, this is early access. Compare it to any science experiment. You got to change a variable, and then you have control. So I guess that's efficiency in this case. So we'll see how it plays out. So then I guess so go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm really glad that you like Orebreaker. Orebreaker is like one of my sort of like something I have tried to champion, but it is one of those maps that, like, KFC and I talk about this all the time. It's one of the maps that has been so bastardized and hasn't really ever really got the chance to work as it was intended. The original design for the map was so, I think, really cool. I'm going to be biased because I designed it, but the original design of the map that never got to see the light of day, it was changed right away, was really, really interesting, but it was designed as a skirmish map originally. So from there, it has just been changed so many times that I just don't feel like it has the opportunity, and I'm going to say the opportunity to work, because I think some things just aren't in place to allow for that kind of gameplay.
Right, we'll
he
see.
loves Orebreaker.
I really like Orebreaker.
Personally,
I really hate it.
Personally, well, we got you on record for that. No, but personally, if I had it my way, I would add 3 maps of just complete ocean around Orebreaker, and just push the envelope in terms of just open sea battles. But hey, that will require a whole lot of re-implementation.
Give us battleships.
I've been trying to get water tiles for a while. I don't shut up about it. And I think that's it's one of the things with Warbreakers. It's just like, it's just a case where the reality of game development is sometimes things don't always work the way you originally envisioned them.
Always. This show never works the way I envision it. So yeah, last question here. We're 15 minutes in. We will get to our calls. Very last question here. But there is the fear, and this happens every war, that because player population is usually low this time of year, larger maps may mean less interesting wars, or at least that's the fear and the theory going into one. What can either of you say to that?
This is an early access game. And here's something that I know is really hard for people to believe. It's just something you'll have to trust. But 1.0 is going to be huge. Like, we're working with a very small population right now in early access, and it fluctuates, like you said. We're in a low period right now, and it will definitely go back up as we reach closer to summer. But we're keeping our eye on the prize, which is 1.0. And if you stood with us at any of our cons, you go to PAX West or PAX West last year or PAX East the year before, like it's like every person we talk to stops by the booth and says, "Oh wow, Foxhole! I played this 2 years ago. That's great. I'm really glad you guys are doing well. You know, I'll definitely check it out again." And there's no doubt in my mind that when we actually start doing some marketing, which we haven't really been doing,
yeah, how's the Clapfoot marketing?
We're gonna. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, the truth is that that press doesn't really care about games in early access for obvious reasons, right? They don't really want to associate with it. So, like, our marketing is really just limited. It's really word of mouth and how people interface with it. But when this game hits 1.0, we're going to be dealing with thousands of people. That's my firm belief, and we need to be ready for that. Like, I don't even think the world as it is right now is enough to contain what 1.0 is going to have. And you can take a look at the Steam charts for when we came into early access for an example of that. Like, we had, upwards of 5,000 or 6,000 people? Like, this world's just going to explode. And what
I think we're gonna have to probably have multiple shards, because even if we doubled the size, I don't think it would be enough. I think the thing to realize is if you take Wolcen as like a really recent example, when I bought Wolcen, which is an early access game on Steam, it had maybe about a couple thousand players, and now look at it. That was going from early access to 1.0. I'm not saying we're gonna have those numbers, but
you gotta be ready for it.
Yeah, we have to prepare for it. And the other thing is, our early access games often see huge jumps because I'm one of the people who usually doesn't play early access games. I wait till 1.0. So if there's one of me, there's more of me. So it only stands to reason.
It makes sense. You saying multiple shards kind of breaks my heart a little bit, but I completely understand why it needs to be. I don't know. That's a special charm of this game that you really can't find anywhere else.
It would be great if we don't, but
yeah, I want to amend that, because I know that that's something that Mark that's on his mind too. Is he doesn't want multiple shards. We want one massive world, but the reality is we may be forced to. That's how big of a burst of players we're expecting.
Wow, if the player count reaches a certain number, it is an inevitable reality, no matter how many resources we have, because it can only grow so much without being ridiculous. So
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for fielding my questions. I'm going to shut up now. Let's get to our callers. Please put yourself in the lounge channel on the PressCorps Discord. Link below this stream. Just click on the Discord picture, and it'll bring you here. And put yourself in the call queue channel. And # call queue right there, call-q, and it'll be, and we'll put yourself in line. So we'll get to our first one here. Not spots this time, but the record hasn't broken. The streak has been broken from the 128th Artillery Regiment, Liquid Popsicle. Welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps.
Hello. It is always great to be on with you guys. Always.
Oh shoot! Hold on. Oh, I gotta scroll up again. No. It's Liquid. Sorry. I thought it was Terrento. No, it's like Liquid.
No, he's just messing with you.
Okay. Sorry, I took your vibe. Go ahead. Go back onto it.
Well, I know I, for one, am very curious to hear how you guys feel the Storm Cannons went over this past war. Because there were a lot of very controversial, I'll say, changes that were made to it. A lot of people feel certain ways about them. I know I have my own opinion, being on both the giving and receiving end of them. But I am curious to hear what you guys feel about them before I say anything.
I think it's I would be more interested to hear your opinion, to be totally honest. But from what my gut reaction is, I think it might be a little overpowered right now. But I don't think we're ready. Like, not enough for us to warrant immediate reaction.
All right, let me give you a little bit of information then.
Oh boy.
So over the course of the war, the 128th and our allies built a total of 6 storm cannons. Only 2 of those 6 storm cannons saw action. The rest of them were a huge garrison supply and upgrade part drain on our team, which we all feel relatively guilty about. Those 2 that did see action, namely the ones in, I can't remember the name of it, the one that fired at Lockheed Breakers, and the one in Callahan's Pass that took Iron's End. They were both best case scenarios. We sat there and we planned out and made pretty much the entire base had ready in our heads before we even started laying down bunker pieces. And what that allowed us to do is to get this really, really thick defensive line and great setup for the cannons themselves to fire offensively into other regions to make sure we didn't lose the area at the cost of well over 3,000 garrison supplies per day, which 128th is a relatively small clan. That is a lot for us to manage. At some points, with randoms building defenses off of our networks, it would get up into the 4,000 or 5,000 per day, easy. And with how long it takes to get garrison supplies, maybe we don't have time to get on that night. We had instances where we let it run out and had to pour the BMATs in them to repair them. And they were constantly under siege. They took, honestly, a full week to set up. The 24-hour timers don't do it justice. People say that, you can set up a storm cannon in 48 hours. You also have to truck the upgrade parts. You have to put the concrete in. You have to put all the BMATs in. It is a huge time sink. And in all honesty, apart from the fact that it just knocks out town halls completely, and this is something that I do need to tell you guys about because it's a little cheesy. Town halls specifically, we were keeping them pinned without a spotter because we could see on the map, the second they started building it, that region zone would flip to green. And we'd be able to shoot at it and make sure they couldn't get it up to get AI back. That's not something that happens with relic bases. Relic bases are significantly harder to deal with this storm cannon. And that is where the storm cannon really actually starts to feel, a little bit more on the underpowered end. Because without infantry there to push up, without a spotter within the 130 meters view range binoculars has, depending on the altitude the spotter's at, to actually make sure that that base stays down, it will get rebuilt. They will build through it, their AI will come back, and they will continue to fight. It has almost no impact unless you do it perfectly, which we have seen many colonial storm cannons that haven't really done much. Not necessarily because, maybe they weren't on at the time. I know we took out one of their storm cannons in conjunction with 3SP. They did not have time to react because we, cross-region fire with another storm cannon that they didn't know where it was. But they have not been anywhere near as effective with them. And I think that simply comes down to the fact that, we know what we're doing. We're ready to go. We have everything planned out. And we have experience. And experience makes a huge difference with a weapon this large. It's the same thing with a nuke. You could get a bunch of randoms together to drop a nuke, and they're not going to be able to muster the manpower it takes to actually get to any of the main logistics towns. They might end up dropping it on a frontline town like Jade Cove. It's one of those things that, honestly, me personally, and a lot of people that I've played with that have been on both the constructing, firing, working end of the storm cannon and on the receiving end, feel that it is a little bit underpowered for how many resources and how much time we have to put into it. It is insane the amount of effort we put into this war to get those storm cannons up and operational.
Would you say that the main cost is the garrisons, the effort that went into supplying the garrison?
Honestly, it was a huge drain, but maintaining the garrisons of multiple bases, that's when you start to get into this is so extreme that there's no way we can do this. It is nigh impossible to set up backline storm cannons for defense because they suck up so many garrison supplies. I know a lot of what the colonials have been doing is building the storm cannons with little to no defenses around them, right? And that does cut down on the garrison supply. But then you lose the storm cannon extremely easily once they figure out where it is, which is really a no-go considering how much effort you have to put into building them. But the real issue comes down to the fact that each individual bunker piece, I'm pretty sure, from what I can tell, is 1 garrison supply per hour. And the bunkers get big, and the trenches get all over the place, and it's beautiful, and it's amazing, and I really wish we could have fought in some of the bunker complexes we built, but their garrison supply drain is absolutely astronomical.
That's good to know. It's good feedback.
It's definitely, I'd say, the biggest reason why we actually started letting storm cannon bases decay, and it's mostly a matter of, we didn't have the time and resources to maintain all of these storm cannon bases, and the ones that we had in the back line, they were too far back to really be useful anymore. And that's 300 upgrade parts and I don't know how much concrete that just we had to leave to rot because we couldn't maintain it. And another thing I will say with the storm cannons, they are very strong when used correctly. We get together with large organizations, do a very major push. Usually what happens when stalemates build up, the front line is the only part of the line that's defended and everything behind it is relatively undefended. And what we did, and I think a lot of the people on the receiving end of our cannons didn't really understand this, is during low pop hours, when there wasn't much of a conflict going on, especially in Deadlands, we did this little thing called preemptive bombardment. And we loaded up our storm cannon and got the spotter in there and just started breaking all of their bunkers and their defenses. And that was the night before, I think, we made a large push into Deadlands to take Iron's End. And that significantly lowered the resistance we had. If we had not done that, we would not have been able to push as hard as we did. There's so much effort and coordination involved in using these things the way we did that I think a lot of people aren't seeing. I know there are plenty of people on the front line, and I agree with them that the storm cannon's ability to shoot and pin town halls is a little bit extreme. I personally have advocated a long time for town halls, relic bases, to get artillery shelters. Because then the infantry, the tanks, they have to move into there and actually secure it. It can't just be sniped. Artillery is meant to be a support weapon. But I feel like the storm cannon right now is in definitely a better place than it was. Personally, I'd like to see more range out of it with how much effort it takes to set up and how stationary it is. Because once you've taken all of the area that you can fire at, like our storm cannon Iron's End, it's useless. It's literally just a burn on garrison supplies, and there's nothing you can do about it.
How many storm cannons did you have operating simultaneously, if any?
We only used one at a time. We had batteries set up. They never actually saw combat. If they did, I'm sure the Colonials would be much more upset than they are now. But I do remember at one point, and I was talking to Stranger Days about this, they thought we had 3 in Callahan's Pass, and it was just the one. But we had, a full set of loaders and battery crew on, and we had stockpiled all these shells together, had them in crates, dropping them on the ground to get fastest rate of fire. Burning through power like a motherfucker.
I think it was a siege regiment that had 3 simultaneous storm cannons, all adjacent to each other.
In that was Colonial one, right?
I believe
Yeah,
so.
it was led by Trekker of the Colonial Siege Battalion.
RazGriz was the reporter on the ground for that. I think him and Bolotniy.
No, that was Bolotniy.
No, that was me.
I was almost part of it, but I couldn't due to school.
We tried.
There
I'm sure.
3 batteries in, what was it? Lockheed firing on Deadlands, if I'm not mistaken. There was 3 batteries and they fired for 3 hours straight.
Jeez.
So I actually have a question. So Popsicle, you mentioned how artillery is supposed to be a support weapon and everything, and it shouldn't be able to easily take out town halls.
Yes.
And I get what you're going with that, howitzers and field artillery and everything, but personally the storm cannon reminds me of, I don't know, the Karl Derat siege mortar, or maybe the Schwer Gustav railway cannon.
It's half the caliber, but it is comparable, yes.
Yeah, but those were siege cannons. They weren't really support. They were meant to destroy strategic areas, such as the equivalent of what would be like a town hall. Like the Karl Derat Thor was moved to the Warsaw Uprising in 1944, and its main goal was to take out the Polish resistance. It didn't, but that was its whole purpose for being there.
So the whole idea behind this heavy siege artillery, and I can see how a lot of people can get things confused. Destroying things is a support role. It's not necessarily that this thing breaks something, so it is offensive. Bombers themselves, like the actual flying bombers, like the B-17 Flying Fortress. They had fighter escorts, right? And of course, you think of a fighter. What is a fighter's role? A fighter's role is to attack other aircraft. But in those bomber formations, those fighters were flying for support. They were there to back up and fill in the gaps that the bombers could not make up themselves. That is what artillery is. Artillery is one of those things that without the infantry on the ground, without tanks, without manpower pushing an objective, like let's say we're taking abandoned ward, without those people on the ground to move up and secure the area that we have cleared with artillery, the artillery is absolutely meaningless because the enemy will move in, they will repair, they will rebuild, and all of the ammunition that we just spent will be next to useless. And I can understand how people might get concerned that, why make this exception for the town hall, for the relic base? And the thing is, the spawn system in the game it's a bit of, like KFC was talking about earlier with the map borders, it's a bit of a magic system. It's not realistic. It's not where you have, however many thousands of soldiers all stationed in this one point. You blow up one spot, there are still soldiers there. It's this, well, people, we only have so many on the front line, so we need somewhere for them to die and respawn from. And the way artillery works in the game right now, I absolutely love our infantry butts up against AI defenses that we can't take care of on our own, so they call in a strike from the storm cannon, and we absolutely delete the defenses for them, at the cost of power for actually moving the aim over there, and then they can move up. It is fun for everyone involved. Just pointing it at the town hall and destroying it, and then, eventually AI goes offline and, it's pretty much free pickings for us, that's not fun. It's not fun for me. It's fun for a select few people that, enjoy one-man army, but that's not what this game is about. I don't think, under any circumstances, the artillery should be able to kill the spawn points. It should be down to the infantry and the tanks to move up and take those spawn points. The artillery should just be there to help them get close enough to do so.
All right. Well, Liquid, thank you so much for your... Oh, sorry, Matt, were you going to say something?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, no, Liquid, thank you so much for... That's some amazing feedback, and we hope to see you out again, you and the AR out again in the 50th. You looking forward to that choke point in the middle?
Oh, I am. I've got my eye on Deadlands. I know we're going to lose it like we always do, and we're going to go all out in our favorite spot this
These are three of the most meat grinder maps. Deadlands, Drowned Vale, which is just a massive meat grinder, and then, what's northwest of Deadlands? Oh my goodness.
Linnemer.
Yeah, thank you so much. Lina Mercy, which is not as bad as the region that is Lockheed, which is north of that. I don't have these memorized yet.
Marvin Hollow.
Yes, thank you so much.
Listen, I named them all, and I don't remember. So, oof.
There you go.
I feel that.
Liquid, thank you so much. Appreciate you calling in again.
Yep, thank you for having me on. Have a good night.
Can I speak up for a second?
Sure.
We are having this kind of Q&A every time, like round table we had, and sometimes we had developers before talking in the voice chat, and people constantly asking them questions. I do not think this is fair and actually contributes much to the game development of having a developer sitting on a steel stool and pointing a gun at him, telling him, hey, why didn't you do that? Why don't we have people asking questions and then have developers ask questions in return?
Yeah, actually, you know what, man? I think I agree with you there completely. Although, when we come on to these shows, I think it's obvious that we're going to get asked questions, and we're totally okay with that. But I think you're right. I think that fault is on us because we haven't been asking any.
I like answering questions, so I don't mind.
But you should ask some, is what I'm saying, Matt. Surely there's something you want to know from the community that's coming from the about the maps that.
Yeah, I mean, if something relevant comes up, I probably would anyway. To be honest.
Yeah, no, please interject.
Yeah.
I don't think I actually stated that with Matt. But regardless, I mean, that last call was great because it was just pure feedback for someone who's an expert in artillery.
Listen, the storm cannons are just to kind of have my sort of statement on the storm cannons are hard to test. Seeing them in a real experience like that is unbelievably invaluable, and getting someone who's got probably the most hands-on time with it, from the sounds of things, to be perfectly honest, is pretty invaluable. So,
do you remember our tests, Matt?
Yes, KFC and I did a lot of storm cannon testing together.
You know what's funny? Their impression of artillery is a little bit skewed because from my point of view, from what I am learned in the military officer training, the usage of artillery is actually right now pretty accurate to how it is used in real life.
Well, we'll see. Different countries have different doctrines, so maybe maybe you're skewered to him. I don't know, but this is fascinating.
Yeah, definitely falls for superior firepower.
We could have a whole fire support forum, couldn't we? But regardless, let's move on to it. Terrento, thank you so much for calling in. Sorry about the mix-up there on my end. I thought Liquid was first in the call queue, and that's how I have him. But regardless, Terrento, thank you so much for joining us here on Zero Dark PressCorps.
Hello, Geoffrey. Hello, everyone.
Did you have a question, comment, or concern here for us?
Concerns? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I do.
Oh no.
At KFC, feel free to interject as well.
Oh, can I leave? I'll just walk out.
Yes. If there's one thing I want to talk about, not just one, actually a collection of things that round up as one. That is artificial timers. Now, if I want to be more specific, I'm talking about mainly sorry, I'm talking about mainly decay and efficiency. Now, no, don't get me wrong. I know that you guys like added this stuff because you don't like wars lasting like 2 days max. You guys want actual progressive wars that take time. But from the times that I played, it's just it gets to the point that it starts to hurt. Like it really hurts, especially the efficiency because decay we're kind of already used to it.
No,
So,
but
like-
with artificial timers, are you specifically talking about efficiency, or is this the tech tree, or?
Actually, yeah. Thank you for asking that. It's mainly a bit of everything. Like I don't have many problems with the tech tree itself, but like you said, it's a bit of everything. The tech tree, efficiency, decay. You know, those things that don't feel natural, that are meant as band-aid fixes, just so we can have at least 1 week of a war. But of course, it being a band-aid fix, it upsets quite a lot of people, including me.
I think at this point, though, I thought we mentioned this when we opened the show, when it was me asking questions, is that they've kind of went from band-aid fixes to now they're just part of the game. Like KFC said, they're here to stay for at least the first part of 2020, if not bleeding over into the second half. So.
Yeah. I want to add also, but this was brought up at the beginning of the show as well, but Logi's coming up next. Like that was, I think we announced that like a couple of weeks ago, and people were like, it's too far in the future to really think about. But I mean, Logi is literally coming up next, so you guys can be hopefully excited about changes that are coming down.
Well, you've had that slide.
I will tell you right now, we just had a really long, late conversation about it today. So, like, it's in the works, kind of, at this point. So.
I mean, yeah, we all know it's in the works because it's been on the dev stream slide. That's been your opening slide for the past 2 dev streams, which is so like a month at least, if not more. I don't think anyone pays attention to that first slide though. So, yeah, if you do, and if you don't, everyone just immediately everyone collectively shuts down their brain when that slide comes on, and then turns it back on when they move on to the next slide, which is the quote-unquote real content. But regardless, Terrento, if you could pick one of those artificial timers in particular, like decay or efficiency, anything you can think of to improve it.
Yes, I would like to say efficiency.
Sure.
Because decay is one of those things that are bad, but are necessary. Because I know that if devs just decided to turn off decay to 1 war to see what happens, I would just count on my clock to see how many minutes do we have until one server crashes. But anyway, yeah, efficiency. So like, efficiency is one of those things that is good on paper, but it was executed poorly. Okay, but objectively saying, why is it bad? Why do we complain about it so much? Why do we always want it changed?
We?
Well, it's because first of all, efficiency is a unofficial timer, so it already was received with bad eyes from the community, and secondly, because it was implemented, I guess with kind of a haste, because it did what it was supposed to do. It slowed down the war, but it slowed down in a way that it wasn't fun. Because I don't know about you, but we have to wait what, like, I think it's 8 hours. So like we have efficiency at high, but then since people have been stocking upgrade parts for those hours, and people have like different objectives, they have different tiles, different things they want to upgrade, then we in 3 seconds we go too low again, and guess what, we have to stock all these upgrade parts again, so we can wait another 8 hours, and so, and also because like people don't want to feel like they're being held off. They want liberty. They want to do their own things. But of course we know better, and then yeah, we if we just let people let loose like the Wild West again to the wars.
Yeah, you got to think about it from the flip side too, right? So you say, or a lot of people have said that yes, efficiency has that artificial meaning of it takes away player freedom for the people who are attacking, but for the people who are defending or trying to defend from a steamroll, their freedom is essentially taken away without efficiency because they don't have room or time to do anything because the other team is just steamrolling them so hard. Which we've seen several wars beforehand. I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just agreeing with you because like one problem that we have is that if you just start getting steamrolled, then what is the motivation to stay? Like what? Like you're just gonna leave, wait for the next war, and that just further encourages snowballing. So that's a huge problem.
Personally, desperate. I mean, you're absolutely right. Uh, probably speaking on behalf of a lot of people, but for me personally, I love desperate defenses. Nothing more fun than that. Like nothing more is more fun for me than the last point in Team Fortress 2, and the enemy is just, and the other team is just steamrolling you, and then you just decide to play defensive spy. But regardless, in terms of, let's lay down some groundwork. Matt or KFC, can you remind me of the number? I guess this is more KFC then. Can you remind me of the numbers on how long it takes for efficiency to scale up, or is it a fixed number, or is it dependent on something else? Like, where are we now with that? I guess I should look it up, right?
We just changed it, so it's it's an excuse to say you don't know how it works right now. So it's definitely been iterated on in this most recent. I don't know if you took a look at those patch notes, Terrento, but that's the idea. Was we saw that one. That the big issue was that people you only have one time a day where you can hit your efficiency. Now it's definitely more gradual, but it's still it's not perfect. We're gonna keep building on it, but it's. I have to be careful because we actually don't want to talk too much about how the efficiency works. We'd rather get you guys' opinion on how it feels rather than the opinion on the numbers. But suffice to say that now we should hope to see less complaints about when it happens. And we hope that you guys will feel like you have more during the times you need it, if that makes sense. And less during the times you don't.
Yeah, I guess I can agree with that.
It's tricky because a lot of players, especially the regulars and the veterans, they live with these changes for so long, and it could be so grueling. It's it's got to be hard for first and foremost the testers. But I wonder what it's like because every time I see new patch notes come out, I always imagine this underground laboratory where the player base is essentially a bunch of lab rats moving around in this giant maze, and then the developers are kind of watching from one-way glass above, and they're just taking notes vigorously, just waiting to see any variables changing whatsoever. and sometimes it just breaks your guys' heart in this made up scenario I've made for myself, just to see the lab rats kind of sprawl over each other, and you're just waiting for something beautiful to happen. I think this was a dream I had, but regardless,
Okay.
yeah, Terrento, did you have anything else for us, like in terms of decay or whatnot?
Yes, I do. You ask me like, what would I change, right? About
Yes.
efficiency.
Let's go on to that.
Yeah. So like, let me just open up by saying that I'm not a developer. I've never messed with actual game balance. So anything that I say here, you guys should probably just take with a truck full of salt. But one thing that I've been talking to a guy is that instead of efficiency, we should have like something called resentment, like simulating towns getting captured too fast and the soldiers not getting to know the locals first and getting their trust. So, long story short, how this system would work is that if a faction starts capturing too many towns too fast, and the resentment would go up, and we don't talk much about what would be the penalties, but we talk that like if the resentment was at full 100%, then the enemy would be like be given the ability to spawn wild within the region of the town that is resent. So like I like this idea because it provides a choice. It doesn't mess with upgrade parts, but it provides the faction with a choice. Do we want to risk getting out the towns fast and then dealing with the consequences later, or do we want to play safe, capturing bit by bit to make sure that we do, it's a slow snowball instead? Like, I thought it was really cool. I
love that.
You guys like.
I absolutely love.
I think Mark is often. Well, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I feel like it was Mark. It might have been you, Cassie, or I'm making this up. But efficiency was often described to me as like you can't just wander into a town with like your military and assume it's just going to be like handed over to you. Like the local population is not going to just like work for you immediately without some sort of pushback. And I thought that was a kind of an interesting dynamic, and the efficiency is going to be very different, closer to your home where everybody is already like assimilated. This is really dark, actually, but you know what I mean, though, right?
Like, it is how it happens in an actual war, which we get our inspiration from.
Walks in, give me your town. No. Oh, okay.
So it's it is a bit abstract, right? Because it is just like numbers in game, but in a weird way, there is some logic behind it. It isn't just like random. And I don't actually work on the efficiency system, so I feel okay saying these things. But I feel like it's an interesting. I was really like uncomfortable with it at first, actually, because it just did seem like a timer. And the more and more time I've seen it and experienced it, the less uncomfortable I am with it. But I still think, as we have been working on it, I still think it needs some more love to get it to the right place.
Yeah, thinking long term, it's tough. Actually, Terrento, I really like that idea with you and who was the other person you worked on it with?
Lee, wait a second. Let me get the.
I like how it's a twist on uprisings in resistance phase. It's
oh yeah, upright. Oh yeah.
So what you're suggesting is it basically works like you take a territory and then over time you can make it friendly. So like the way that friendly and enemy territory works right now, and then you just take it so that somehow there's some way that over time, if you just hold on to it for a long enough period, that it becomes friendly and makes it more easy to upgrade that.
Maybe garrison supplies, or it even could work like if you try to get a town that is really far behind, like let's say the front line is in Deadlands, but you somehow manage to capture a town in, I don't know, Weathers, people would be highly hostile against you, so resentment would start already.
Yeah, or you could spend garrison supplies, like dual purpose for garrison supplies. Now you can use it either to maintain defenses or quicken that resentment cool down a little bit.
Let's take a look on how usually in war people manage to deal with local resistance without violent means, because you cannot kill something that is not present on the battlefield. Propaganda. How do you do propaganda? You play music over a loudspeaker.
Oh no.
Just build a loudspeaker.
I see
sounds like
where
a
you're
terrible
going.
idea.
Flashbacks are
So we have a supply that is meant to keep up a anti-resistance? I don't know.
Or just
To
a new
keep
item.
the population under your thumb. I see what you're saying.
New item, propaganda poster. If you make enough of those, you can immediately just remove all resentment. So just dump 1,000 posters at this town, and they'll be like, "Yeah, you know, we're cool."
I mean, listen. Propaganda was is even to this day a very big part of war. So,
I know.
if we want to do a war simulator, maybe propaganda has to play a card. But I don't know. I think it's just it's a tricky subject.
It is, but you know what, Terrento? That's a great idea, and is it written up somewhere on the Reddit?
No, actually, sorry again. I found the guy's name. It's Leophodia, and I talked in the official Discord. I mean, and I have the original message. I don't know if that will be of any use. I could talk to him, and we could like refine this idea a little bit more before we release to the to the community.
Please always be working on some sort of suggestion or mechanic. Assume the devs are going to do it, because they probably won't, but they can be inspired by parts of it. No, I know, but like you never know. You never know. Maybe they'll like this one tiny bit, and that might actually make it into the game, and that makes change somehow without you thinking about it. So, regardless, Terrento, thank you so much for calling in. As always, appreciate it.
Oh no, I actually have to thank you guys. It's always an honor to be part of these episodes, and to even more honor to actually talk to the developers, both Crazy or Matt or Mark or anyone that happens to get here to talk with us. It really like, I'm sorry if I'm ranting a bit, but it really is cool. Like you guys are so open, like transparent. Like I know that people will like question your design choices or even make memes out of you, but if there's one thing that we have to admit is that you guys are very transparent. You guys are very open to the community, and we appreciate that a lot. We have a heavy shortage of developers like you guys.
Well, thanks, man. That means a lot to hear.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Also, I appreciate you coming and caring enough to ask questions.
Aw, that's so sweet. Thank you, Matt.
So polite. Everyone's so polite. Get the hell out of here.
Look
Thank you so much. Regardless,
Hello.
Spots, thank you so much for calling in again. You are not the first caller this time.
Yes,
that is
and
the first in
the
about 10 episodes.
trend has finally been broken.
It really has. So have we broken the other habits, including spitting out 5 ideas at once?
Actually, no. This time, but this time I'm going to actually include it into like a more general refined idea I'm getting now. An
Excellent.
update,
Go
and a
for it.
full-scale update I'm thinking of. I already have a good name to it. The build-up to bloodshed. And this update will be basically covering right now. We don't really have a pre-war. The pre-war is resistance mode, which is a fucking joke. Changed my mind.
It actually is. Maybe
Yeah,
not as
yeah,
harshly,
it's
but KFC has, KFC, we talked about this in a previous episode where, yes, resistance mode was just kind of abandoned outright,
Yeah.
and now it's just practice mode. But regardless, so I'm sorry, you've outlined a whole update for yourself?
This is actually, I'm currently need to type this out. I got the name of it, but I'm thinking of what. But one of my I'm thinking about, okay, every update has like the main core part. I'm looking at how updates work in the past. We have a main core part of the update, which was like in update 26, the map floor changes, and then we have a smaller secondary part that does change the game as well. Like during the update, I think 20 when we got the battle tanks, that was a smaller feature. Or in the latest update, we had the trenches, but then we got these really cool bunkers that were added. My idea is that the main update will be focusing on a completely brand new mode, which will basically overhaul pre-game forever. Basically making it something that is actually worth your time and giving logistic players a time to just to get themselves ready and get themselves going, basically.
All right, and you know what, and reminder, KFC Matt, feel free to interject with all sorts of prerogatives as he goes along here, because he may not slow down anyway. But basically the main idea I have is that we need to really. My idea is that we're gonna have like a pre-building phase of the war, where instead of like the war is gonna kick off instantly and both sides have to scramble in, instead we're gonna have people start building up supplies, and instead of giving them 1,000 rifles from the beginning, people actually have to make their supplies, and this is something that you devs really want to do, like a completely player-based economy, and we need to remove that beginning section of supplies we get, making the entire game rely on player-driven goals. Like instead of we getting basic supplies at the beginning, we actually have to build up those supplies, bring them to the front, and plan out the beginning plans of the war. Instead of like, oh, you get 1,000 rifles at the beginning, or with 1,000 rifle ammunition. Here you go, now go kill each other.
We actually gave that some very serious thought, but the problem that we encountered was, how do you stop that from just making a steamroll that lasts from war to war? Like, the winning team that has more population, more morale, like just won the war, they've got a ton of people on, aren't they just gonna log on and just like build a massive stockpile for the next one?
That's one major issue I'm considering of.
This was the problem when we had the supply drops. It was a problem. It's a really, really challenging one.
Yeah, that's something we need to figure out. But we can't really work around that. We might be able to just have like an interesting build up. But I really want to see a build up phase in the game, like a phase where people can start building up. If we can't deliver supplies to the front, maybe give up the option in the back lines to start building up defensive lines to prepare for a war, basically. Like instead of us having a resistance mode, like after resistance mode is done, we get another day of rest that we can, instead of players logging on, building up, just nothing going on. Instead, we give them a mode to build up in. Like, basically give them the option to build up defensive lines in the back lines, and give them their usual supply drops if we want to do that. Something like that, and maybe even possibly, we give them, maybe if we really want to do it, have like 30 minutes before the war. This is the idea, sub idea I have for it, is that we give access to the mid regions, except for certain parts of the mid region, which will have like somewhat like an invisible barrier to them, but like maybe like a warning, like halt, you can't pass this line due to a peace agreement, basically, that's about to be broken into another war. Basically, something like that to prevent players from crossing the line. And the oceans will be open mainly, but there could be little naval scrimmages going on as well at the same time. But you can't enter the enemy land yet, because if you try and enter the enemy land, your boat is just going to be exploded. Basically, no chance of surviving that. Basically telling players you can't do sneaky stuff yet. You just need to just wait for the war to just start off, okay? And people can have like little time to prepare, basically. But the major issue is that Abandoned Ward is not because Abandoned Ward will be. This is leading to a project I was working on a while ago called Fixed Ward. If you know about it.
Nope.
I remember you talking about it multiple times.
Yeah, basically, this leads into the project. We finally got one of our guys finally logged on, and we start slowly but surely reamping our goals. But this kind of leads me into the project that I was talking about earlier. Basically, Abandoned Ward. This is like the update side dish. Is that it's fun, but not 100% gonna work in this new update. Basically, because the colonials don't really get anything to build up in. Like a couple mountains and stuff, but nothing really compared to the Warriors, which get the Plaza Axe ability right at the beginning, which they can build up to prevent the collies from pushing in that easily. And the collies must control Plaza to control Abandoned Ward. So here was the idea that we had. How about we expand Abandoned Ward in south and north, and maybe expand them to encompass a larger area in the game world. Like not super large area.
Wait, that's a really good question for Matt. He wants to
What's
know
the
why
question?
why can't we have a bigger abandoned ward, like a big?
I feel like that'd be a good thing, to be honest as well.
Abandoned Ward is the basis for. Well, Deadlands is always the prototype.
Yeah.
So, Abandoned Ward or Sunhaven, the town, is the prototype for all the other big towns.
Right.
It is sized very particularly. Mark, in particular, was very, very particular about how big it stayed or was when it was originally designed. And that is kind of the basis with which we base other towns. So if a town is bigger or smaller, it is the medium. So it kind of works. It's kind of, first of all, like, we don't want to have like massive like, this is something that comes up a lot, so I'll just address it right now. We don't want to have like an entire like hex-sized town, because like I think people think that's going to be fun, but I really don't think it's what you think it's going to be. It'll be a meat grinder, more than towns already are. And I think, you know, KFC and Max, it's weird calling you KFC because I don't.
You can call him Max. We all know he's Max.
So Max and I, we have talked pretty extensively about a couple of changes we want to make to Deadlands, but none of it really involves Abandoned Ward. There are changes we want to make, though, just so that I don't want to talk about them too much because I don't know if we're going to do them. But
yeah, but basically our idea was that Abandoned Ward was a capital city. Why is it so bloody? It's like I know you're trying to make the city as like make sense that you want to make Abandoned Ward as like example, but maybe it's time to move on from. Maybe we can like do something interesting with a ward, like saying
hold on, I'm going to interrupt you again.
What?
So there's also this really strange misconception that the capital city equals biggest city. When even in Canada here, I live in Toronto, which is not the capital of Canada, and it is the biggest city in Canada. So Washington D.C. is not the biggest city in the U.S.
I know.
I can continue going. So like it's the diplomatic capital that is usually the capital, and that's why it is chosen as the capital. And that's an important distinction to make from a lore perspective. It is not the biggest city in the country, but it is the most important.
Without looking it up, what is the capital of Australia? Anyone?
Sydney?
It's
Brisbane. Damn it.
Melbourne?
Isn't it Queen something? I don't know. I don't know much about Australia.
Actually, now you've made me doubt, because I thought I knew it. Because Boris.
So did I. Hold on.
PressCorps member Boris Grushenko. So now I'm looking it up. I'm pretty sure it was. I thought it was Canberra.
And also, let's take into account
it's Canberra.
It is Canberra. Okay, no, I was right. Okay, yeah. So anyway, sorry, that was just an aside. But regardless, I think the largest city we have in the game, the largest urban area, is Saltbrook Channel.
Yeah.
I think that's right. Yes.
Yeah, and that is always a time. So I can say that fights in there are still fun. So I don't think we've reached that threshold yet. But yes, there have been all sorts of suggestions to the point where people think it's actually a developer release thing where we have these mega capitals with fortress cities, and it takes up a whole region. And I don't know.
Right.
Part of
I don't like
part
that
of me
idea, actually.
does still think that would be awesome. To be
It
able
would be
to siege
cool
like
as
that.
hell.
It would be
I
cool,
would
but
love to see it.
non-functional. Non-functional is
Yeah.
what you're worried about. So actually, can you articulate that a bit more? And we'll close with this with Spots this call. Can you articulate a bit more as to why? Because you mentioned meat grinder. Any other?
Well, think about the fact that like trying to actually gain ground in a place like Saltburn Channel is fun. I will say, it is a time. It actually is almost like a mini game in itself sometimes. It is there because of the density, like the actual density of garrisons, the fact that there isn't as much building room because, if you think about actually trying to take an urban area in real life, you're probably going to go in there with like tanks and vehicles and not so much like building things up. You're going to garrison buildings. That's the way it's going to work. There's a really, really good show on HBO called Generation Kill. It is incredible, and they go into a city, and you can see the first recon team go in, and it's based on a true story. It's written by a guy who was actually there, and they're screwed when they go in there as like a small team. The people who have the city have an enormous advantage over the infantry team. So if you were to scale this up to like an entire region, think about the time it takes. Foxhole is an abstraction of time, right? Mm-hmm. So think about the actual time you spend, not only in game time but real time, trying to actually take one of these places. Now abstract that out to a full region. So
that's why I'm
difficult.
not a personal fan. I did agree with it, but I was thinking, wait a moment, no, it can't work that way. But I think about my original idea. This was kind of expanded, but like expand Ward a little bit more to the south and remove that weird mountain to the side, so we can make the center part of Ward like an entire island. And a smaller idea I had was, instead of we fighting over one central town hall, we actually fight over like an old capitol building. Something like an old place for government instead of like a town hall.
Do you know what a town hall is?
Yeah, I know.
That's exactly what you just described.
I think he means like something more compared to like
the nation's capital.
Something that's
like a Capitol building
there.
or a White House, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Or like a giant statue of Callahan.
Like maybe a giant statue of Callahan. So like
instead of Lincoln, it's just Callahan.
That's simply a content issue. I wouldn't. Like when I say a content issue, what I mean is like that the function would be like identical. Like it doesn't have a purpose other than being a town hall with like a skin. So like that's something that we could easily do. And I think that probably be on the cards. I'm pretty sure like Mark would love that idea, to be honest.
Yeah, basically you're saying like instead of fighting over like a simple boring town hall, you actually get something unique and maybe make it like my idea was actually make this like a more unique town hall, like a Band Ward. He said Deadlands is like a beta for new features to be tested in. Maybe we can implement the first idea I have for like a town hall, but instead of you spawning outside, you can lock inside of the town hall like relic bases.
I think that's like likely.
Yeah, like
interior.
I'm not gonna say it's a fact, but it should happen. Town halls are like the most important building in the game, yet you can't actually enter them.
Yeah,
that would mean they have to get real big, though.
That's okay.
Yeah, as well as that, maybe.
So maybe not willing to expand towns, but maybe expand the town halls themselves. We will see. Spots, thank you so much. As always, please, I encourage you to write these down and post them somewhere.
Yeah.
Ignore the downvotes, unless you deserve the downvotes. But I'm pretty sure you won't. Just post it out there. Ignore all the comments that are memes.
Right.
Just to have it somewhere where people can read it. That's always what matters most. So, Spots, thank you so much for calling in. Duly appreciated, as always.
Real quick, Geoffrey, you have some of the best. You have like one of the best voices in.
It's like Chunk at the beginning of the movie Goonies, where he's like watching the cop chase in the window.
Spots, thank you so much.
Hey,
Draccos, thank you so much. You're here with the full attention of two of the developers of the Clapfoot team. Draccos, welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. Did you have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Right off the get-go, none of those three, but I did want to compliment you, Geoffrey Jennings. I've always been a big fan of your show here, Zero Dark, and I'm glad you guys had a moment to go ahead and spare for me. In terms of questions, I would ask you guys how you're doing.
Well, I'm doing fantastic. Crazy Matt?
I'm sick. I'm actually trying not to talk too much because my throat is scratchy as hell.
Oh no.
You shouldn't be sick.
For a while.
I know, right?
I'm fine. I bought a case of Corona as a joke for a friend. And
Sounds like you should pass it over to that guy over there. He needs some Corona.
so I'm just swell.
There you go. Ghoul, RazGriz, how are you?
I'm doing pretty fine.
Bolotniy.
I don't know. I'm fine.
I'm doing decent. I mean, I'm semi-sick, but like, I actually like. I'm gonna take this time and ask us. I'm gonna say it's a pretty stupid question, but like, so Spots was talking about how like expanding the war. Now, what if in theory you just split it down the river? The Plaza's one thing, and Sunhaven's one thing.
Split it down the river. You mean like a war setup?
Like split the 2 sectors or whatever, and have like the island as one, and have the Plaza as another, and have 2 separate town hall areas you have to capture.
Oh
So
wow.
it's like the island's its own thing, and then you have to cross over the bridge, and that's an entirely another area.
So you're proposing to essentially make the war kind of like almost like a forced water, absolute has to be water battle kind of conflict.
Well, no. It's just, personally, whenever I've fought around Abandoned Ward, I know I'll go over towards the Plaza or whatever. People flank out, like we're trying to push for maybe Callahan's Boot, whatever. And people flank out of Iron's End, start taking the hospital and the church, and it gets annoying that you get caught up in the safe house and everything. And then you spawn back, and you have to get over the bridge. You just keep running over the same bridges and everything. You just cut it down the middle. So then you have the island, and then you have a place to spawn in on that side and everything. So you immediately spawn back in, you're back in the fight, you can hold that area. But if you lose that, then, I mean, the Wardens, if they're coming from the north, they have an area to spawn in right on the opposite side of the bridge where you have it. So you both have really close spawn areas, and then you have like an intense over-the-river battle.
It almost makes it like a 50-50 percentage chance of either side being able to get leverage over the other, kind of almost making it more of a fair battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've got, like Matt said in the last one, I think we've been discussing changes to Deadlands for a while. We don't know if it's actually going to happen, but, I mean, that one I think is probably much less likely because it's breaking a convention of having more than one, and that's kind of what the safe houses were intended.
I was just about to say, safe houses they function a lot like town halls, and they're hard points. So, yeah.
One thing I want to say too is like, there's often this misconception that everything has to be like equal on either side, and I don't agree with that. And I think Abandoned Ward is more interesting because it is asymmetrical in how it is approached from either side. And I know that there are each faction and each player has their opinion on it. Trust me, I have heard every opinion on Abandoned Ward. I really have. And I'm not saying anybody is right or anybody is wrong, but I do think that it's often mostly the positives and negatives are going to come for everybody from their individual perspective. And when you have something that isn't perfectly symmetrical, it's a tough one. I personally like that it isn't symmetrical, but I'm not going to sit here and say it's perfect either.
You know, I gotta jump in real fast and just say I like how the map layout of this war was for war number 49, for the simple sake that oftentimes, and I've participated in the last 10 wars, the Wardens, once we lose a certain amount of leverage on the map, it's usually over for us. This war, that changed. It was almost like the Super Bowl this year, where like right when we're getting pushed past the Deadlands, like our normal losses, like our normal, oh great, we lost Marvin Hollow, we lost this, we lost that, oh great, now we're gonna lose again. It actually turned around full 360 this time, or 180 or whatever, and we fought back and we actually made a huge turnaround this war. It's like a big change for the Warden strategy that I got to say it was impressive. To make the war go as long as it did as well, 22 days and some hours, or I think it was 23 days almost. That's an impressive amount of time considering the last few wars were only a couple, maybe a week, 2 weeks maximum, you know?
Yeah, I know as a colonial, one of the days I got on, I was like, oh, well, let's see how the war's going and everything. I looked at the war map and everything. I was like, oh my god, the Wardens are like going to lose this and everything. And then I sat there, I played for a bit, got kind of bored, got busy with my life and everything, came back, looked at the war map in Discord, and I thought, Jesus Christ, what just happened?
Yeah,
So
really
they went from
really makes
the
you think.
Wardens being pushed into a desperate defense to the Colonials are on such a back foot they can't even turn around to fire because they're just running at triple time. And then we were put into a desperate defense, and then it broke, and I just looked at the map and just saw just splotches of blue, white, and just a few greens. It was almost just all blue and white, and I just sat there and thought, oh, well, the war's gone.
It's hard to say exactly to pinpoint what it was. A lot of people are pointing to efficiency. I know I am personally, but it could easily just have been the roll of the dice, in that the right people made the right decisions at the right time. And I was actually looking forward to a Colonial comeback, simply just for the sheer epicness of seeing two comebacks in the same war. But I guess it just wasn't in the cards this time. But we will see with the 50th conflict, just to see if that'll turn out, especially with more space this time to actually make strategic moves as opposed to the 3-lane kind of situation we had in the last war. We'll see.
You know what's interesting is I'm really glad it didn't go on any longer, because we don't really have a process in place for implementing a patch mid-war. I don't know how it would have ended.
Just stop the war. It's like, all right, everybody, it's like third-party intervention. Y'all, the UN steps in. It's like, all right, both of y'all need to stop fighting for a bit.
You know, I have a technical question for you developers that are here in the channel right now for you guys. I have a clanmate. I'm part of the ISO. It's a clan that was up and rising. It was the Roughnecks spin-off, if you guys will. This last war, the Roughnecks kind of fizzled out, and the ISO kind of filled in the void. We made a storm cannon, and Death Dealers, one of our clan leaders in the clan, had fired it a few times and mentioned to the effect that the impact of the rounds had a glitch to them, in fact, that you guys had to, during the war, in fact, fix. Is that true? Or, and if so, what exactly around the storm cannon's firing capabilities was having issues there, or glitch issues, rather, if you mentioned the story right?
I don't actually recall. There was no fix that was implemented.
That sounds like news to me.
Yeah, that's why I was like, is this guy just blowing smoke, or what is going on? Was there actual issues with the storm cannon? If you guys are saying there was none, then I'll take you guys over him any day. He might have heard from somebody else. I don't know where the story came from. I was just curious as to whether or not it was true. You guys want to debunk that for me right now? Awesome. Thank you. Storm cannon works great, everybody!
Perfect.
KFC, you know better than me, but
no, there was no hotfix for the storm cannon. Nothing that I'm aware of.
Could have been a glitch. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, there could have been something, but I never heard about it.
Maybe
and if it had to do with the impact, I feel like I probably would have heard about it. So,
and I gotta say, being a test dummy for one of the impact sites, I can literally say that when we fired our first round out of our ISO storm cannon in Ogmaron in the Moors, which is only about a week or so ago, we fired that. I think maybe a week and a half. I got to be at the firing site to see the firing of it, but I also, when we fired the second round, got to be at the trajectory range and got to hear that sucker coming in. And I was mentioning in the lounge chat, hearing a storm rifle round come in is terrifying. I almost literally really shat my pants. Like, it was bad.
Oh yeah, I love how you can hear the boom across the map. I love it.
Oh,
that took a bit of work to set up, by the way. That's like not as straightforward as it sounds to do that. So,
Draccos, what was the exact issue with the storm cannon that you said was happening?
Well, it's what I'd heard from him when we were talking earlier. He had said something verbally along the lines of the impact in certain cases when it would hit certain areas wasn't at full impact capability. It was only at 33% impact or something like that. I don't know. He was mentioning some statistics involving an issue he had personally, but I don't know if that was something that was like everybody was involved in the game with it. Every storm cannon was having the issue. Or I think it might have just been something he was talking about particularly.
Oh, I remember
I was just trying to clarify, because you guys are the developers of the game. You guys know better than he does. I was just trying to clarify if that was actually a real issue or not.
I remember this. There was a bug report about this. Somebody sent me a screenshot of a storm cannon hitting a tier 1 fob, and it didn't destroy it, but the damage should be. Indeed, there does seem to be some kind of problem, not with the storm cannon, but with all artillery, because Similar to like the howitzer, it's like if it hits more than one target, the damage gets distributed in a strange way. Sometimes like as little as one soldier can negate damage that's caused to something else or reduce it.
That's it.
We don't know what it is that's causing it, and we don't have enough information for it yet, but we do know like that's not just the storm cannon, that's all of them.
Yeah, I had heard, but there was the storm cannon involved in his story that he had been in the trajectory of the impact range as well, and everything around him got destroyed except for him. Like, he survived. He was like the one thing, and was like, how is he alive? But that fits the exact bill you just said, so that makes sense.
I will say I've witnessed that too myself. In that, yes, like just for regular howitzers, where a shell will hit bang on someone, and it won't kill that person, but it'll kill someone who was 20 meters away. That's an exaggeration, but not in the direct blast zone. So yeah, it's funny. All right, well, we'll see how it goes. But Draccos, did you have anything else for us here? I actually just remembered you messaging me. I do apologize for all the DMs I have not answered back. My goodness, I have a list of them.
It's fine, man. I know you're busy. It's understandable. Don't you worry, man.
I have this bad habit where I look at them and then I don't answer them right away, which is always a bad idea because you will forget when you try and go back to them later or not. But Draccos, if you
Yeah, it was a pleasure. I know you guys got to get on to your next caller, but I just want to say, in terms of that message I sent you, I just wanted you to be known that the Roughnecks have disbanded, and we've ultimately become the ISO. Not everybody's on deck. Not everybody's on deck right now. Wire Dog, there's a few members that aren't 100% in, but it pretty much has evolved to become the ISO now. So Roughnecks are the ISO now.
Personally, I love it when I see outfits and regiments evolve over time, break up, join together, absorb each other. That is so fascinating to me, and I really.
That's exactly what it is. We just evolved. That's all it is.
That's so cool.
That's good. I'm glad you guys are sticking around.
There's a certain trend noticeable with regiments that are not English speaking of aggressive dissolving. They have kind of civil wars inside, like Third Red Army Division had inside of them, or KOP, sorry, the Polish regiment.
Yeah, that one broke up too. KOP broke up too, and splintered off into something else. The Knights of Poland.
Yeah, they break up so sporadically. Like one guy just starts muting people in the Discord channel and saying he's seizing power.
I will say this though: between about 4 or 5 of us ISO members, we just between the 4 or 5 of us spent about 500 to 600 hours on this previous war number 49. So that in itself, between 4 and 5 people spending almost 500 hours on a war that lasted 22 weeks. I'm not trying to brag here, but I will give ISO guys a big, nice pat on the back for sure.
I mean, brag away, man. That's monumental.
We need that.
That's a ton.
We need that regimental system soon enough in the game.
Yes.
But regardless, Draccos, thank you so much for joining us here. Please, any stories you have, any war stories, any experiences, please submit them or talk to one of our reporters, and they'll sit down and record things with you. That's what we're all here for. That's what the PressCorps is here for. So thank you so much.
I love what you guys do, and thank you. Have a good night, guys.
Jeffrey Jennings, I had a question for you.
Yes, as we move on to... Oh, I actually should have brought him in here with Liquid. But regardless, go on. Yep, KFC.
Yeah, so the that clan recruitment, or the ad space available on your newspaper, did anybody ever take... Is that like a real thing, or is that just like a nomic, or like a...
That is a real thing. Now, I should say, we are not charging for it. People were saying, oh, how many commends is it? Like, no, that was just a joke I think someone made.
Upvotes.
But no upvotes. We're not charging by the upvote. But I have to talk to Potato, maker of the incredible War 19 documentary, and he is our de facto newspaper editor. Although I don't know if we're handing that off to Bolotniy soon enough, or Brain as well. I'm kind of lost in track. We have like several branches here at the PressCorps for various forms of media, and I haven't been keeping up with all of it. But I think someone did take it, and we will have to work out a system. Multiple people have inquired about it. So I think we do need to figure out an equitable way, because we do not want to charge people, certainly not money, that I feel we're doing commends even for it, but we'll see. We will see who gets that top spot for it. If not the next issue, then the issue after. We might even have a classifieds section. where
Can we have a fine love section?
Okay.
Misconnection.
I've got a great idea.
Sure.
We make all the clan leaders who want their ads in the newspaper to have a foot race. Whoever wins gets the ad.
I like that.
Oh man.
Hey Geoffrey,
Yeah.
the Storm guy you brought in, he said
I think he is
he
AFK.
can't unmute.
Yes. But that's okay.
I actually have a really good idea for you.
Yes, go ahead.
They have to write the best ad.
Ooh. Oh man, that's so subjective.
I don't know. The foot race idea is pretty good.
But you have an editor, so it is subjective.
Just do Bloodborne. Just like whoever wins the fist fight. You know.
Oh God.
Foot race.
Fist
Yeah,
fight.
pretty much. All right. Well, in any case, we'll get on to our next caller here. But yes, Yodasgirl, welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. Welcome to the show. Have you been on here before? I don't think so.
No, I've not. I'm actually relatively new as far as stuff goes. I only joined in the, in the trench update. And also, you saw the furry Foxhole meme that I just recirculated.
No.
That was you.
Yeah, that was me. You want to know the dumbest story? The reason I joined Foxhole is actually because of that meme. I saw that meme independently.
What meme? I'm sorry. What was the meme again?
It was a furry commenting on or reviewing Foxhole and saying.
It's in loud voiceless, way up.
Stop.
It's also in memes propaganda.
I'm not gonna show the stream, but.
Yeah, don't show the stream.
No.
Make them find it themselves.
Yeah,
I remember
it was them saying this game is not what I thought it was going to be. And I saw it in a friend's library when I was, because we family shared, and I was like, hey, I saw this in that meme. I'm going to download it because it actually looks like something I'd play, and that's how I fucking showed up to Foxhole.
Wow.
And that's our advertising.
Well, that's what's gonna happen until you bring in the press.
That's Gorilla.
Good. Cool. Cool
God,
advertising.
it was the. So I thought that was the probably the dumbest way anybody's ever gotten into Foxhole before.
But it might just be the best.
It actually is. I mean, like, that's how this whole game grew, was through word of mouth. And Steam sales. But mostly word of mouth.
Yeah, I was talking to some people and they were like, hey, there's a Steam sale going on for this. And I was like, oh, I like the game enough, I'll buy it. So I ended up buying the game independently from my friend, and I've got 77 hours about 3 months later.
Damn.
That's really cool.
Damn.
So,
Well, we're glad you're here.
But in any
Oh,
case,
that's yet to be seen.
No, it's too late. I said it.
how long have you been in the? How many wars have you been through?
Oh God, I joined.
He said he joined the trench update. So
Yeah, the trench
update
was the first one I participated in.
Oh yeah, you got the first iteration of the trenches. That must have been a mess.
Oh my God, it was.
The grids.
I remember the most memorable thing about that war was I don't remember where the fuck I was. I know I was in the east.
In the
And
east.
yeah, in the east, somewhere in the east. I wasn't in the islands, but there was some dude, just a staff sergeant with a bayonet, who had a band of newbies following him, like me, and he was just charging at everything.
Was it 82 DK?
It wasn't 82 DK. It was just a random.
Oh wow.
He was just a dude with a bayonet who said, I'm not taking any ammo, I'm taking a rifle and a bayonet, and got a bunch of randoms to follow him. And that was my first thing of just charging with following this dude with a bayonet, seeing him every once in a while as he appeared. He was like a cryptid on the front lines. It was the dude you'd see run up behind like 3 collies with a bayonet,
And
hit
just
him in the
skewer
back.
all.
Yeah, skewer all of them,
Kebab.
and then disappear, say something, random like charge, and then disappear into the fog once more.
That's already better than almost
That's
every
pretty much
bayonet
80K.
charge I've been a part of. Leader always dies first. Always. And then everybody just scatters.
You
Yep.
see, if I learned anything from Naruto, you don't lead the shadow clones. You stay behind the shadow clones.
Yeah, that's exactly what he was. I guarantee you that's what he was doing. He was baiting us and then showing up behind the colonials, and we pushed him so far back. I didn't know there were automated defenses because I just joined. And now that I look back on it, we must have pushed them so hard with our stupid bayonet charges that they didn't have time to build any more automated defenses because we just stopped running into them.
I do wish those flags were bigger because I can't tell between white, green, and blue sometimes how small they are. But no, regardless, yeah, no, I mean that just shows the power of the 24-hour sandbox, and I don't think people appreciate enough just how, or people realize enough that when you go into the war, you are on. You never know. Someone could be streaming. Someone could be experiencing their first time. So it could be experiencing their 1,000th hour and experiencing something new. And just bumping into whoever you'll meet. It's a total toss-up especially for new people. That it kind of scares me. But hey, you gotta trust the sandbox. Sometimes.
And then you'll be running around, and one guy just pops up and says, "I saw a bear," and we're like, "Who?" And then all of a sudden, it becomes like I knew who he was when I joined in, but I've heard people be like, "Who's that?" And we're like, "A streamer." And I'm like, "I'm going bear hunting," and we get what I swear to God, at the start of 49, we got 2 trucks from someone first 2 trucks full of guys. We're like, we're going bear hunting.
Yep, that's why I have multiple pseudonyms that I just play under, and no one knows.
We weren't stream sniping. We were just looking for. We were like, I was like, I sat there. I was like, I want to talk to him before y'all shoot him.
At the about middling point of this war, when we'd taken back our Logi areas and we're starting our push into Deadlands, and there was just that trench line in the north of Deadlands. Somebody marked it on the map as Verdun 2020. And I remember we had a APC that me and a bunch of guys. This guy started. I met him because I had a critically wounded soldier on my back, and he rolls up to me with an APC and says, "Hey, want me to take you over to the hospital?" And I'm like, "Sure." Why are you doing this in an APC at Fort Duncan? And so we got this like squad together of 7 dudes. Rolled our way over to Verdun 2020, and I stood at the back of this APC and yelled at everybody in the trenches to follow me and charge the enemy lines for Callahan. And we just had this stupid charge where we charged directly at the enemy. We succeeded! I don't know how. We got through that first line and I was just like, hey, we did something! How did we do this?
I swear, the only good charges are where you have just like around 50 people sitting in a trench just sitting there, and eventually someone takes the initiative and says, we're charging, and starts running, and then you get a few guys start going after him and like, oh, we're committing, and then everyone decides to commit, and you have 50 guys charge a trench. That's the only
time they Mel Gibson, the Patriot approach.
No, pretty much.
Yeah, basically.
Like every other time, we a few guys, like maybe Lockheed Breakers, we had about 20 people there. We could have charged over to the Wardens, probably got a small foothold. I said, we all need to commit, leave 2 guys on the rocks, and go. Yeah. So I said, charge. We started going. We only had about 5 people. And a few other people kind of followed up, but then they ran back. And then we had a medic kind of followed up, but he ran back. Which I can understand the medic, but everyone else just kind of was like, I'm not dying. It was like, really?
Yeah. Like, oh my god. Oh god. You guys pushing over Lockheed Breakers when you had... I don't remember, it was like 2 or 3 battle tanks from what the Warden,
I was there. Yeah, it was 2 battle tanks from Siege. No, it was 2 light tanks. 2 light tanks and a battle tank.
Yep. Yeah, it was, we were getting mixed reports. At one point, I remember I heard somebody yelling that there were 3 battle tanks at Lockheed.
No, there were 2. There was 2 light tanks and a battle tank, but the Wardens were scattering, and I just there, and I was like, oh, they're scared. And it was great. It was even better when they brought in a Dervitt light, and they're like, oh, we're gonna take them all. And we threw a few shells their way, and they ran.
Oh my god! Because I was sitting in the back doing some Logi. This one guy yells in Logi chat, "Is anybody going to Lockheed?" And I'm like, I'm running Logi to Lockheed. He says, I have a truck full of stickies and bazookas, and I need you to take it to Lockheed because I'm signing off. And so I came down with this just flatbed of stickies and bazookas, looking at the general chat as everybody's panicking because we had no AT, by the way. I'm amazed you guys didn't push further because
you guys had cannons. That was our only issue. You guys had cannons, but I'm starting to remember this now because all of a sudden they had tons of bazookas.
Yup, that was me taking down these bazookas in the back of a flatbed, and me and 3 guys that I randomly rallied were sitting outside of Royal Fort. What I think it was Royal. No, it was. One moment. I have to look at a map now because I never know. Spit Rocks. Spit Rocks. That's what it was. Spit Rocks Relic Base. We're sitting outside of Spit Rocks Relic Base, taking out bazookas and stickies, putting them in the Relic Base, and so we're sitting there because they're in crates because we're in a what's it called? I took it down in a flatbed. And I'm just like, everybody, I need people to help me unload these, because otherwise I'm going to be here for 15 minutes, and I'm going to still be here when the Kali BT shows up.
My best experience with Foxhole was following a tank, crawling in bushes, and trying to keep out of its vision for like 20 minutes or so. And I had a gas grenade, and I waited for it to stop to repair, and I knew they ran out of filters. So I gassed them, and I stole that tank, and it was like my second war. It was so amazing for me.
Yeah, Yoda, after you get out of this call, if you go back to the lounge and you can speak with Trekker, he was the guy leading all those tanks. He can tell you exactly what it was.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to talk to him.
Yeah, because Trekker's the guy who led those tanks. He's the one who had, like, the triple storm cannon barrage. Trekker did a lot of things this war. Siege has been very well coordinated.
It does not matter what information that story had. The report I had is that it had 3 battle tanks. So in the bulletin, it's 3 battle.
Yeah, it's because I swear, this is actually the first war. There's a smaller clan that I'm running with right now, and we haven't gone really public, but because we're attached to another community, the Space Vikings. And so if you see a couple guys out there running around with SVK tags, that's just that's our tiny clan that runs Logi. Most of what we did was partisan work throughout the entire war. And I wasn't there for this, but I know they found a bunch of colonial barges just filled with stuff, and they went, "We are going to drive this into the middle of colonial defenses and have them sink their own barges."
Oh my god. That's chaotic evil.
Yeah, so they would get into barges. They had a speedboat behind the barges, so a guy could get out and get picked up by a speedboat. So the speedboat would go back, get a new barge. They'd drive the barges up, have AT guns fire at the barges till they were destroyed, till they were almost destroyed. Get out, get in the speedboat, go back, get more barges. And it must have been like 7 barges or something, according to them.
Sounds like that one VNS stockpile that was found at one point with a lot of petrol and armaments they kept hawking from there.
You know, we could go on for a long time, and I would love every moment of it. But please, Yodasgirl, if you've got any exceptional stories that you think is worth an article of its own, please submit something into the submissions channel below, and we'll see if we can get into the paper or talk to one of our reporters, and you can share your experiences there. So, Yodasgirl, thank you so much for calling in. Please welcome to Foxhole, and we can't wait to see what other chaotic evil you get into in the coming wars.
Thank you for having me here, and thank you for allowing me to come on the show.
Yeah, for sure, sure indeed. Oh my goodness, we are 90 minutes already into this. That just flew by. I don't know, KFC Matt, how long have you gentlemen have left?
We should be getting off soon, I think.
I actually have like a really just random question.
Not for any particular reason, but my throat is just killing.
Of course.
So you guys know how there's like those signs and everything outside Sunhaven, like on the plaques and everything, it says "Welcome to Sunhaven," that kind of stuff.
I know.
Yeah. So there's one to the south of Outwitch that for the 3 times I walked up to it this war and tried to read it because I never noticed it before, it was just blank.
Okay, so let me explain. We have a couple of intrepid level designers, Clapfoot, who place these signs and then don't do anything with them or tell me about them. So then there's no words on them.
Intrepid, adjective, fearless, adventurous, often used for rhetorical or humorous effect.
Brilliant.
Why did you really just look that up?
Yeah, just to make sure everyone else knew. I knew what it was for sure. But regardless, Foxy, thank you so much for calling back in. Just want to say real quick, I don't think we will get everyone in the call queue in time, at least for KFC and Matt. I'll hold out for as long as possible so everyone gets a chance to call in here, but we'll get right into it. Foxy, thank you again. Welcome back, and what'd you have for us here, or the developers?
Thanks for having me back on. Just few quick questions really. I'll try and be really quick and then other people can get on. I know we've touched on efficiency and stuff like that, so I'll probably avoid that topic because I can tell it's something that you're really heavily debating. But I guess actually not to want to totally avoid it, but the biggest problem I saw in the war in 49 just gone was that it was really hard for colonials to break territory because of efficiency, because we were always in what was deemed to be enemy territory. But at the same time, that gave wardens a big opportunity to sort of accrue a lot of new parts as well. So it was kind of like there was sort of two things going against us almost, and it didn't feel to me like that was the intention of the system. I mean, definitely to stop snowballing, but kind of like it was sort of like we couldn't hold back the floodgates when sort of wardens came back on, and the comeback was real this war. And then they had so many U parts behind them because of the stalemate, and it was like an artificial stalemate because our momentum was really only stopped by the fact that we couldn't upgrade relic bases and town halls to AI, sort of stuff like that. So that was just my thing.
This is like absolutely wrong. When I was in the game and I was running with SIR, we had like a stock of 400 U parts in our midst. It was not that wardens had a lot of U parts, it's that they collected themselves and they started playing collectively. When we overextended ourselves and kept playing for too long, people became tired, bored of the game. They stopped playing because they were playing for too long and they became stressed, while wardens were taking it calm, and eventually they just got up because they were up for the fight.
Yeah.
Well, Bolotniy, did other people know that those 400 U parts were there?
Yes,
were stockpiled?
They were scattered along the regions. There was literally a town hall that had 200 U parts.
I don't know the exact figures that each side had, but the reports that I've heard from wardens is that they had many hundreds of parts, hundreds of units of U parts, and that means they just forced their way through very low efficiency, whereas we did have U parts stored, but we didn't have the quantities where we could just tank our way through low efficiency. So definitely there was quantities on both sides, but that was just anyway. Efficiency's awful to talk about, so let's not talk about it anyway.
Well, I want to turn that around on you. So I want you to go back. I want you to go back to that moment in the war where you guys were winning, where the colonials were in there. Your efficiency is killing you. You're finding yourself burned out. But there's a stalemate. You can't seem to take any more ground. What tool or vehicle or weapon or anything other than efficiency, what would you imagine would have been a really cool thing to have at that moment to break through the line?
It occurs to me that if there was some mechanic we could have other than waiting for efficiency to reset, something that we could actually influence that would either give us that 1-to-1 efficiency U-part ratio back, or another way of activating AI, a way to circumvent this efficiency barrier that would have given us, in my view, the actual sort of ability not to maybe take the whole region, but to hold what we'd taken and sort of reconcile that position. Because Bolotniy is right, we did overextend, and colonials do have a really bad habit of overextending, and I think there is the kind of archetype of both teams is that colonials are just like a bunch of crazy randoms and the wardens are like a really disciplined legion, and that does show sometimes because you you look at some of the decisions the team has made organically, and you think that was not the right decision at all. Like, we kind of spent hours and hours at the Royal Fort, and the entire team said we should have gone for Moon's Copse instead because it's just strategically a better position in the region, but kind of no one listened, and we eventually got pushed out, and that was the beginning of the end. Regardless of the team making those bad decisions on taking territory, that's not kind of related to efficiency. That would happen either way.
Well, I think what our inevitable goal is to get us to a point where there's not necessarily a need to spam AI defenses. I know that AI is kind of the meta as it is right now, and certainly it still is, even with efficiency in there. But like as an example, like, what if you could just build rockets? Like, what if you go back to that moment in history when you were pushing them and you had them on the back foot, and then you developed a rocket and you could nuke their town from there? Like, to me, that reads as a way more exciting way to solve the stalemate than just allowing you somehow to build more AI defenses.
Yeah, definitely. It's a system that I don't envy you guys at all. Let me just say, I don't envy these decisions that you have to make, because it feels like, you know, it's always going to be a trade-off, and there's always going to be that aspect of putting in artificial barriers against what should be a really kind of naturally progressing game that is, you know, something that's 100% player driven. To have to put these walls in must be incredibly frustrating. But that's just, you know, that's the burden you bear, unfortunately. And I guess this is just like,
it's also the joy. Honestly, yeah. I think it's. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say that's why we became game developers. If we wanted easy problems, we would have been bankers.
Ooh, shots fired. Wow.
I mean, bankers make a lot of money. Accountants make a lot of money. That's because they know exactly how to do it. Yeah. Making games is hard. I know that this is a thing that like people say, but it's not just like a random thing people say. Making games is hard, especially making games where there's literally no other examples. We have nothing to look at. We have nothing to learn from. So we have to just kind of go and learn from our own experiences, which is.
Yeah, and please don't take any of this as criticism against you guys.
Oh no, I'm just kind of like saying that.
Yeah, it's difficult, and we like to talk about stuff. Anyway, let's leave efficiency. A few things I wanted to ask is, people have touched on resistance mode already tonight, and the fact that it's not really used for anything it was intended to. And in my mind, is an opportunity there to fill a bit of a gap. Like a few people that use DevBranch really love DevBranch. So, and if you go into like the starting island, there's not actually anywhere where you can just freely build in this game, other than in a war, or if you get onto DevBranch, you know how to use DevBranch. So, is it at all possible that we can have in this period between wars, the ability and maybe a nice kind of open region where people can just practice building designs, especially now with new bunkers coming up? It's kind of like, if you want to practice this stuff, you're going to have to go and grind an awful amount of materials to do so, and a lot of Foxhole is, the meta evolves during the war, like a lot of games, but it kind of feels like there could be a benefit to people, a big benefit to people, if they have like a consequence-free building outside of a war. I think that would be really nice.
I don't think it's an impossible request. I don't know, what do you think?
What do I think, or what does KFC think?
Well, no, you just told me what you think. Max, what do you think?
Say.
What, to build outside of the war?
He'd like to have, during the resistance phase, having sort of more of less restrictions on buildings so that you can kind of practice.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's sort of a weird, that's, again, like you said, this is a bit of a design problem, because we want to. I think it would be really cool. Like, it would give you a chance to learn like how to use battle tanks and stuff. But I want, like, if you go back to when you were first,
I think specifically more talking about like the trenches and bunker bases and stuff. I think just getting into like bunker bases and stuff, or to get into like battle tanks and stuff is a bit trickier. Otherwise, I would just put them in the home regions. Right?
Yeah. So. I could see that. I guess that makes good.
I think it kind of ties in as well to the kind of if you go on the wiki, which is a great resource, and hats off to the people that have put the information in, but there is quite a bit of stuff missing, and that's ultimately because these values have to be discovered by people either in game with a lot of guesswork or on a dev branch with a lot of guesswork. So it kind of feels like if the people had that little bit of a sandbox, I appreciate that there is the concern that we don't want to split the player base off from persistent war. We want everyone to stay together, which is right. So if you had this thing running alongside, you probably find loads of people are just building planes, sort of like Gary's mod, but in Foxhole sort of thing. And obviously we want to avoid that, but it seems like it would be a really good tool for a lot of reasons. Kind of discovering the sort of the values that makes the game sort of tick underneath, and also just that that kind of sort of ability to build that thing you've always wanted to build and not get murdered because you've wasted like 3,000 BMATs and 10,000 BMATs and loads of like garrison supplies and new parts and stuff.
But you will remember your mistake better if you lose something behind.
That's true.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, this sounds like we just want to make things really inconvenient for everyone, but I do wonder that sense of discovery and build up and.
Yeah.
If you, because I'm thinking back to my Days in Planet Side 2, where they have, and I'm not saying everything needs to be copied from Planet Side 2, but they have a VR training section where you can sample literally anything, any weapon, any vehicle, any aircraft in the game in that VR training, and you can use them ad nauseum, infinite ammo, and then you can use them later. Now, of course, they have an in-game store for those things where you can spend real money. So that actually makes sense as to why they would have that. But in Foxhole, I don't know if you want to be able to pull battle tanks ad nauseum in a home region, which is an exaggeration, of course, but I don't know.
That's actually so like we get a lot of questions about like why isn't everything in the home region? And my answer is usually I do think I would rather people experience those. Like a battle tank's kind of like a bigger goal. It's not something that you can just like that everyone's going to see in a single war, maybe, right? And I think the moment you see one of those on the battlefield, it's pretty cool. So I don't want to take that away from people. And it's a tricky thing because the argument of like, oh, I want to know how to use it is a good one. So
yeah, I agree with that actually. And actually, vehicles wasn't really what I had in mind.
Oh, right. You were talking about structures and defenses and trenches.
I mean, I still remember seeing a battle tank for the first time, and I was exactly like Matt says. I was awestruck. I was like, "This is the greatest thing ever." And then I got to sort of go coaxial gunner in it, and I was like, "This game is absolutely brilliant," and it got me hooked, sort of thing. And yeah, that definitely would have been lessened or cheapened if I'd have just been able to jump in one and kind of drive it anywhere, sort of thing. So definitely that. I'm gonna say thanks very much, guys, because there's loads of people in the queue after me, and I want other people to get in. But that was just my feedback. Was a little bit of chat about efficiency, and just maybe having the ability to do a bit of build practice between wars would be cool.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
It's always good to talk to you.
Always, thanks, guys.
All right. Well then, we'll keep on chugging along here. I don't know if Storm is available now to talk. Storm SLW, maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but regardless, just a reminder that PressCorps has various media outlets, including a newspaper, the PressCorps Bulletin, I guess he's not, as well as PressCorps Radio actually has been offline for the past several weeks, and that is because of the pure logistics of having a broadcast tower up 24/7. Those are not easy to maintain, particularly when you use those for other things. But regardless, we will continue on. If Storm is not available, then I guess we will go on to not Pyrelighter because he's not in the chat, but Stranger Days, I guess. Stranger Days, welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps. How are you?
Real quick, the thing with Storm is that apparently when he gets moved down here, it actually server mutes him for some reason. So
wait,
you want to do him before me?
Sure.
Yeah, apparently.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Do it one more time. Can you talk?
I was looking.
Yes, I can.
That was weird. Oh,
There you go.
Stranger, we'll get back to you in a bit. Thank you.
I'm on my.
See you soon.
what's happening is I'm on my phone, and when you move me, I can't unmute.
Oh, okay.
It's a weird Discord app issue, and I apologize for that.
No, that's fine.
I've had the same issue, don't worry.
Yes,
1 second, I'm in a really weird position. I just got home from an event, but, anyways, what was I gonna ask? Oh, some of it was kind of already answered earlier when, Matt and KFC hopped in the, lounge channel. But uniforms, how would the, uniforms of this, if you guys know, like, would there be any other insignia on the uniforms than what we see in-game currently?
I would say that that's an evolving answer. Until it's in the game.
Yeah.
That's my non-answer.
As well, it's tied to rank, and rank is kind of meaningless now, other than the social standing. So that I guess that's kind of inherently tied to that as well, right?
And launching ballistic missiles.
But it will be as useless as it is if it just gains a display on the uniform.
Well, the whole reason I wanted to know about it is because I am going to be working on making some real-life Warden uniforms out of, like, the correct materials, like the overcoat being made out of wool, and,
Mind if I interject a question here? Are you by any chance a reenactor?
No, I'm not. I'm just a random guy who wanted to do it.
Alright.
Even better.
But, I wanted to make the uniform look a little bit more lively than it is in-game. So that's why I wanted to know. I had been going through some artwork and found some, like, rank patches on the shoulders of the infantry, and also the epaulets are a little colored, so I was just curious about that, because I kind of went off of what I knew there and made stuff.
Yeah, well, there's standard issue, and then I guess you could add whatever artistic liberties you want with it, Matt?
When it comes to stuff like this, I get questions a lot, naturally, about, like, oh, is this, like, canon? Can I use this for my fan thing? And, like, it doesn't matter. Like, honestly, at the end of the day, like, it's your project. So, if you want to be, like, quote-unquote, like, accurate, just do your best. And just do what you think is cool. And ultimately, it'll probably turn out better than if you just try to be, like, perfectly accurate. That's honestly my thing.
I will add on to that by saying that accurate is changing. Like, what is accuracy in terms of historical accuracy in the world of Foxhole is changing all the time. Because I have written stories where... Sorry, I'll just say real quick. I have written stories where things are geographically correct to the way the map was 2 years ago, and now that has all completely changed. So at this point, I have told multiple people, the PressCorps essentially as well, if they want to make things that are accurate to the lore. Obviously, yes, some things like Callahan and whatnot and the Morrows, but really just in general, if it's incredibly detailed, just kind of make up your own lore, kind of, to a degree, but that's how wide the book is. Not to speak on Matt's behalf, but that's how I've interpreted it. It's just so open, just fill in the gaps and whatever. If it's inaccurate later, that's their problem, not yours.
Yeah.
Say,
I agree with that.
It is not the developers who state what the lore is, it's the community majority. If the majority says the story is true, then it's true. If you make something so good that the majority accepts it, then it's...
That's kind of true to a degree as well. Obviously, again, you can't, like, expunge Callahan from all records, but, hey, I mean, at this point, the fact that everyone calls a rocket a nuke, maybe it's time to actually make them nuclear warheads. I don't know.
Or this is just what people in this world call a nuke.
I guess.
And to the point is what you, like, this is why everybody says, are you going to make Jade Cove like, it's like, no, you guys did.
The potato did.
You know, I love that. We still get
you guys
freaking
did it.
Reddit
It's cooler.
posts asking what that.
Yeah. Like, I couldn't do it justice in the way that it was done. This is a very complicated topic, and I could talk about it all day, so I'm not going to get too into it, but, like, I would rather you do something cool that you're really proud of than try to be accurate. It's just, it's not that interesting. However, with that being said, you know, I can get you some answers. Like if you really want them, like we can figure it out. It's just one of those things that we haven't explored that in particular detail because it's not a part of the game yet.
Yeah,
So,
I just wanted some information in case there was something I was missing somewhere.
I don't think so. I think you're like I was talking to you earlier, and I think you're doing fine.
Okay, and then I have a couple of other things. One thing that Liquid didn't touch on earlier when he was in here is that the Storm Cannon, from what we saw, only does 8% damage to a battle tank on a direct hit.
Oh, yeah.
Which was kind of strange to us considering it's a 300mm shell. We figured it would at very least disable a battle tank on a direct hit. And it was just like armored vehicles in general. And I wasn't sure if you guys knew about that, or if that was an issue, or if it was done that way intentionally.
I don't think it's particularly designed to like be anti-vehicle, to be honest. But
well, it's
that's again, I'm speaking sort of like tangentially because I didn't like design it. So
yeah.
Personally, KFC kind of did though, so I don't know if he wants to.
Could that be an instance of not KFC, but I'm not KFC, but is that an instance of the necessities of the game design butting heads with believability? So yeah, you're thinking, yeah, a gun that big and that kind of that millimeter, that should absolutely shred a tank. But for game's sake, yeah, the Storm Cannon is not really an anti-tank vehicle. I guess that's just a case where those two kind of butt heads.
But at the same time, like, how often are you actually going to hit a tank with one of those shells? The spread is the size of your screen. So it should, like, when it hits a tank, it should punish it for being in that area. It's at least what our viewpoint is.
Was it a battle tank or a light tank?
A battle tank.
I mean, battle tanks are also like beef town. So like I think it's important to recognize that that it should also speak to the strength of a battle tank. It is the like heaviest vehicle in the game. Currently.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Wait, have you accounted for the nature of the shell, of how it works, how much explosive it packs?
It should kill the crew inside. Realistically, a shell that size would cause the shockwave would kill the crew inside of the tank. But that's the second point.
It would hit fragment, and then the explosive force would take out everybody.
And then the only other thing I wanted to comment on is partisans, and a specific issue I had with one in the war. I was coming out of Stone Cradle, and there was a partisan who had built a tier 2 rifle garrison on a road back there way behind our lines, and sat in it with an SMG and was able to disable my truck, and I could not get past. And being in the region it is, you have to go through crazy pathways to get through mountain passes just to get from one map to another. Well, he essentially blocked off an entire lane, and I had to go all the way up through the moors to get around. But I felt that was kind of unrealistic from that point. For his ability to come all the way that far behind enemy lines, build something that sturdy that we couldn't really do much about aside from going and getting stuff from like one of the main towns to combat that.
I personally, as a person who likes to do like partisan stuff, that's kind of what I like to do in the game.
Well, I don't want.
I think that like there is a little bit too much capability with like a small squad behind enemy lines, to be honest. So I wouldn't disagree that it's a little like janky.
Well, my only thing is I don't want one person to be able to end hours of work that other people have done. I think a squad, sure, like 2 or 3 men should easily be able to stop a truck, but one person on their own should not. At least that's my opinion.
He's only able to do that if the team does not react.
Yeah, but that far behind the friendly lines, there's no one there. It's just Logi. And defenses aren't there because they decay.
If you scream loud enough in the wall chat, someone will come.
Not on the warded side. As somebody who has had to do warding QRF for God knows how long, probably ever since I got the game, as somebody who's been forced to do QRF because nobody else will do it, boarding QRF is seriously lacking. Like, you got the guys grinding on the front. Like, every Logi guy doesn't really like to do fighting, and then all the guys on the front line don't like to leave their front line post. That's just what I've noticed.
Well, and also the singular logistics player, by the time they get out of a truck and then pull out their rifle, they're probably dead.
Yeah, that too.
Because you can't fight back when you're in the truck, and once you get out, you have such a period of time when you still can't fight back and they can kill you by that point.
We totally, in-game, we need to be able to roll down the windows. We need to be able to roll down the windows and shoot revolvers out. That's just my opinion.
Or just 1911.
I was just about to say that would be really cool. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to shoot out of a window.
Yeah.
Something I haven't brought up in suggestions or anything is that I was thinking about this, and during the Vietnam War, the U.S. had what was called gun trucks, and it was partisans were harassing the logistics lines, and Liquid's bringing it up in the chat. Gun trucks were essentially just the Logi guys grabbed a truck, they went and found whatever machine guns they could, stuck them on the truck, had a ton of guys in the truck, and their sole purpose was to kill the partisans. That's the only reason they were in the convoy.
Oh yeah, those glorious machines.
Really, I'm surprised there aren't more. I don't see enough escorts coming along with the convoys as well. So we'll continue to see how the logistics game develop. But Storm, thank you so much for joining us. Storm from the 128th Artillery Regiment. Thank you so much for calling into Zero Dark Press Corps. I really appreciate it.
I think I gotta
Thanks for having me.
Oh, running away again!
Yeah, I'm getting out of here before Stranger gets to talk.
I'll find you at fucking 3 a.m. outside the fucking McDonald's, Mac.
Whoa. Man, and I thought it was gonna be Applebee's.
Come on, it's game developers. They're not classy enough for Applebee's. I apologize.
Are game developers like supposed to be not classy? Like
I don't know.
Don't tell that to Anthony, man.
Y'all are like indie devs, so I guess y'all are supposed to be like trendy, but maybe not necessarily like classy.
You'll find them outside.
We only have craft beer in our beer fridge, alright?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm talking about. Like indie. That's indie.
I'm not kidding. You think I'm joking, but like I'm not.
Oh god.
Pictures or you're lying.
Oh, I'll take a picture. Don't worry.
Post pictures to the FOD.
And then you got HB, who's making
I am no longer in FOD, so someone else.
Cocktails ever.
Oh, fucking.
There's a lot of people in press that are no longer in FOD for obvious reasons.
Oh boy. Stranger Days, did you have a question, comment, or concern?
Have people already screamed in here about storm cannon?
Yep.
Okay,
just a little bit.
So you know what? I actually have a non-Foxhole thing since everybody's been talking about Foxhole things, and I imagine these two are a bit tired of answering questions about when uniforms, trains win, ad airplanes, faction imbalance. What games are y'all actually excited for coming out in the near future? Because like we got a lot of crazy stuff happening.
Did you play the Final Fantasy VII demo?
Yes, I actually did at
cool.
PAX. It was pretty neat. I've never been much of a JRPG kind of guy though.
I'm very excited. That's like a game of my childhood, so that's I think the only that and like Baldur's Gate right now are the only things I can think of coming out that I'm really interested in.
Yeah, for me, I'm looking for Titans of Industry, and I've been holding my breath for Crow.
Is Doom really just that low hanging a fruit?
Yes.
Fair enough. Titans of Industry. What was that again?
Industries of Titan. It's like a city builder game, but you're also building Dread, and then you get attacked. So it's like think Sim City, but you're also building spaceships that defend your city. So it seems cool.
Neat. Like, what's been going on around the studio? I know y'all used to do some sort of like, what is it, Friday or Thursday meeting wherein y'all all go out and have drinks or something. Is that still happening?
Yeah, is that still happening, Max?
Yeah, is that still happening, Geoffrey?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do that. We do it pretty regularly. I don't know if we've done one in a little while, but I know recently the rest of the office got together and watched Picard.
That's neat.
Together. I don't like Star Trek, so I worked.
Oh, be careful, Sir's going to mail you a sock.
Oh, he knows. We've had these conversations.
I see.
Thursday trip with the boys to the McDonald's.
I like this image of us going to McDonald's.
Yes.
Waffle House.
Mark HB and I used to go to McDonald's all the time, actually, but we don't anymore. And but I say all the time, I mean once every few months. But still, we haven't done it in a really long time, though.
Eating more than once every few months is too often to go to a McDonald's.
I agree.
So too much.
I know this is probably a bit too early, but PAX, y'all planning to go to PAX, or is this year going to be Games?
I honestly don't know. Sorry, KFC, I cut you off.
No, I don't know either. I've been pressing Mark for it. There's been some talk about Gamescom. He hasn't said, but he also hasn't said yes either. So I don't know.
The tricky part right now is with the coronavirus. We were supposed to go to GDC this year, and we obviously can't because it was canceled. And well, they go to GDC every year, but I was going to be going this year, so I'm very upset. But it was canceled. So it's kind of going to depend on if these conventions even happen, because that's a real up in the air thing right now.
Yeah.
That's fair. I actually work a stone's throw away from downtown Austin, a grocery store, so I'm actually pretty wary of the coronavirus myself. For some reason, the fucking city didn't cancel South by, so for the next 3 weeks, I have a chance to catch corona. Pretty high one at that.
Well, you're at a healthy age. You won't be. You're fine. Just stay away from sick people.
Eastern Europe, for some reason, is just a giant isolation zone that does not have a single case inside the country. I not know why. We had a lot of planes.
Well, you see, they took them for a search when they got off the plane if they saw them coughing, and then they shot them and didn't tell anybody.
I shot them.
Obviously.
I did that.
Damn it again, Bolotniy. How many times do we have to go over this?
They were a threat to the order.
Is this like warden quarantine procedure?
Yes. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to take Bolotniy back behind to the not suspicious looking dump. PressCorps quarantine.
So, bunker bases. What are y'all excited about for people to do with bunker bases? Going back to a Foxhole subject, since this seems to have run its course on.
I saw that a vid from I Saw a Bear, and I just looked at those, and I was like, oh, yeah.
Be fun, lots of roleplay. People are already getting on that latrine RP.
I saw that.
Listen, people really like toilets.
Dude, are you kidding me?
Great Wall of Toilets.
No, we can do the men's bathroom choir. We can sing Drunken Sailor in the bunker.
Okay, listen. I've needed to use a shit bucket at Town Hall for the past fucking 2 years, and we have working toilets now.
Why didn't you use one of the outhouses? What are you doing?
There's outhouses.
Because the outhouses are rotted through. If I sit on that shit, I'm going to fall in. The outhouses haven't been rebuilt in years ever since you changed them from being garrison houses.
I forgot that we had them as garrison houses. That was fun.
Don't worry, strangers, they will squad locals latrines.
What's great? What was squad?
Imagine you want to get to it, press Q, and it says this latrine has been squad locked and says it fucking.
Okay, but like for serious, those garrison houses were some of the best things ever. Nobody would ever. You'd just be moving through town, all the big garrison houses were destroyed. You saw one little flag on top of that house, but you didn't give it any mind because, nobody ever thought that the flags ever meant anything. And you just walk by and then boom, you get fucking clocked in the side of the head by an outhouse. Damn on the shitter.
I can just imagine just a dude walking by. It's just some redneck sitting with a shotgun, just taking a dump, and just hear the warden go outside. It's like, hey, who's out there? Warden. Just blasts right through the door, leaves a hole, and it's like, I got him.
So the story behind that was, when Anthony and I were working on the second set of garrison houses, this was before the town revamp. He looked at it and he said, he looked at it and then he made like a joke mock-up, and he called me over really serious, and then he showed it to me. and then we just put it in the game and didn't tell anybody.
Oh my god!
And it was supposed to be kind of a joke, and then when we changed the way that garrison houses worked, where you had to kind of get in and then they had to destroy the state and stuff, we were like, is it worth keeping this around now? And it wasn't. So
yeah, us game devs are very classy people.
Frank gone wrong.
Yeah.
You know what y'all need to do at some point? Y'all need to make the old tractors lying around into manable vehicles, like relic vehicles. They don't do anything. It's just a single person seater that you can sit in and drive around.
I would love to do stuff like that. The only like barrier to doing something like that isn't like it is totally very easy. We have all the tools, like we could do it. The only barrier is like the more stuff that we put on the server, the less stuff we can have on the server. So we sort of, that's one of the tricky things that is often like not it's not like a sexy thing to talk about, but it's like some decisions are made simply so we can like put more things in the game or have more sort of optimization so the servers run better. And that's another reason why we don't have like full region like cities, because to have all the garrison houses would be really ridiculous.
Have you messed around with maybe adding some more debris in and trying to see if that sort of does it? Because I know outside Abandoned Ward there are a few of those like sort of half-wall destroyed house things that look like they were once buildings.
That's that's a really tricky balancing act when it comes to just like what is like player like cover that like we build and like where is like room that like you guys can build. And so we try not to do it, like we try not to overdo it, because the worst thing in the world would be like this one spot where you want to build something and that how this happens, and then there's like this like rock in the way and you're like, god damn it, Matt,
yeah,
why did you put this here?
That happens a lot more now after the trench update, because buildings are a lot more stubborn about where they can and can't be.
Yeah, and then I just blame KFC and then I make him fix it. So it's fine. But that is a real consideration. So when some people say like, oh, it's like empty fields, like keep in mind we want you to use those empty fields. Like those are there for a reason. So it's like.
What about if buildings themselves, like player-built structures, left a bit more debris, not just like the flat sort of husks trenches do, but like some actual, like, usable terrain that we could hide.
But then, like, when does it go away? Because then you can't reuse that space.
Yeah.
What if it were to have like half the health of the defense that it was, and then take twice the damage?
I think that's cool, but then you're probably going to get like half the decay time because we still need it to decay. And again, that's just like a server thing. And like I said, this isn't like a sexy topic. It's just like, unfortunately, the reality. I mean, that's why we did the Red River demo, because we don't want to have these barriers in the way.
I was about to ask about that. Are there any plans that you can discuss in terms of the Red River? Nope.
Can't.
I was about to say we'll close on this topic, but I think that's it right there.
Okay, can I just throw in one more thing about Red River? The saddest part about it is that I really wanted to play it. It came out on my birthday, and then it happened for 15 minutes at the exact time when I couldn't play it. I am very sad.
One of the things, to talk about Red River for a minute, one of the things that I really loved about it, and what I love about the games that we're making right now in general, being that Red River event and Foxhole, is there's kind of this like event mentality. Like, you missed it. It sucks that you missed it, but there are people who they played it and they're the only ones who played it, and that's kind of neat in a way. It kind of sucks that people missed out. Like I don't like that people missed out. We worked pretty hard on it, but on the other hand, it's like kind of this cool one-off thing that normally doesn't get shared with the public. Usually that would be like an internal demo or sort of a demo to like sell it to like a publisher or something like that. But we used it for a different reason.
Let me say right now, gameplay-wise, it wasn't even that exciting. Once if we held it again, if we held it more and more times, trust me, it would lose its luster, because once everyone got over the fact that it was, 1,000 people. How many people were there?
It was 1,000.
It was 1,000.
Yeah, so once everyone got over the fact that there's 1,000 people on a single map, you just realize we're just kind of shooting at each other, and there's no objectives, and there's a lot of shouting, a lot of music, but that's it. So
the 82 decay firing line, that was pretty cool.
There were a lot of regimental firing lines, which actually was awesome to see. But other than that, you honestly didn't miss that much, especially if you have a low end computer like I do. So.
I literally just looked at the Battle of Red River and everything, and one of the first images that pops up is just this huge line of blue firing simultaneously. So it's just this huge line of blue soldiers and gray smoke, and all I see is just a bunch of 82 decay tags.
Green are just like a heretic masses always.
It's cool that Foxhole comes up if you Google the Battle of Red River, because we found out like afterwards that it's actually a real battle.
Was it really?
What was the context of the war?
It was in 1866, if I recall, between the Indians and the U.S. cavalry and the United States.
Yeah.
Just did the U.S. government a huge favor.
And yeah, I think we might have like buried propaganda. I don't know. Anyway.
Oh my goodness. Well, Stranger Days, thank you so much for calling in. We duly appreciate it, as always.
The only thing I would have further asked
a lot for having.
is actually more of a Matt question.
So
for Dead Harvest, have you ever thought of adding more like fantasy lore, like using, for example, Gaelic folk stories and whatnot, instead of using just generic?
So that's what it is. But it's like obfuscated because we also want it to be like you're playing as a zombie. But that's the whole thing behind Dead Harvest is when we were coming up with it, I was like, okay, if we're gonna do this, I don't just want it to be like, oh, like it's totally just whatever. So yeah, the words infection were banned. I yelled at anybody who said it. I said they're cursed, and it is a curse. And there is like All Hallows Eve and sort of Samhain, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly because I am not Irish. I don't speak Irish. I actually am Irish. The period of time where this was all developed was to protect from they would carve these pumpkins and sort of dress up to sort of fend off the spirits of the dead during like a equinox, because they thought that was the period of time when there was like a short period of time when the two worlds melded together.
So you're saying that on the next Dead Harvest, we're going to be able to build pumpkin lanterns out in the darkness that can slow zombies and dress up in order to make ourselves more resistant to their...
That would be pretty cool, honestly. But that's why it's called Dead Harvest, because it was the harvest moon that they was the time when they actually held this sort of festival.
After uniforms get added, you just hide uniforms out during Dead Harvest, and if you go grab a uniform, you have 3 times health against zombie attack.
I think that kind of stuff would be really, really cool. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, you know what actual popular belief was about the Dead Harvest? That supposedly that was a biological weapon that was loose. A lot of colonials were saying that wardens developed this, and a lot of wardens were saying that colonials developed this. And
you're all wrong. It's a curse.
And it was actually the
ground is angry. We've spilled too much blood.
It's a biological weapon, and it's actually pretty accurate, because if something that would happen in a real warfare, the enemy would automatically assume it's an enemy trick.
So people asked. I don't mind, so just for the record, I don't mind talking to Dead Harvest because I consider it like sort of a secondary canon. It's like not Foxhole canon. So like, the people asked a lot, like, why'd you call it Dead Harvest Deception, like before it came out? And then by the end of it, everybody realized why it was called that. Because you guys
assumed it was the other faction's fault.
Yes, exactly. And then you guys used the zombies against each other. Did you think that wasn't like? We knew that was going to happen.
That caused an absurd amount of butthurt, I hope you know.
So you're saying that guy I team killed 5 times for organizing massive zombies. I did that wrong? Fuck.
I mean, you do you. It doesn't bother me.
There was a actual confrontation between 2 opinions in colonials. There was Zersling that was leader of the operation doing zombie shit, and there was a lot of people that were against, and they were vote kicking people off. That was actually a big issue because people split in opinions and some people got banned. I'm not going to lie.
Honestly, as a piece of lore, that's fascinating. So Colonial High Command was split on whether or not to use their undead hordes against the war.
I think the Wardens just use it like with reckless abandon as well. So it's kind of interesting.
It wasn't reckless abandon. Warden Navy used it first, and then Colonials counteracted with like a fucking 24-hour IRL assault on Godscroft from KOP with the zombies, and after an entire day of wild spawning zombies that we could do literally nothing about, people got so butthurt that they didn't care anymore whether or not we were trying to play along.
What do you mean you can't do anything about it? One soldier with an SMG can do so much against a horde of zombies.
The issue is that they weren't a horde. They weren't a horde. They were individual zombies that continuously wild spawned anytime you killed them, and then they would go and attack mines and fuel trucks and watchtowers, and if enough of them were alive at the same time, they would sort of like gather together and destroy a garrison house, and as early in the war as it was, you couldn't rebuild garrison houses. So any garrison house lost, there was a huge deficit. I think that this is before relic bases too, and so the zombies could go and destroy a relic base as well.
We had special cursed forts, so all the forts could be cursed. Is what would happen. But that was a fun event. I think it ran a little long, but it was fun. And I had a really good time.
And I think I've ran a little long, so I'm going to leave now. Have a wonderful time, everybody.
See ya.
Farewell, Canadian Cowboy of the ARC. Thank you so much for joining us. This might be one of our last calls here, but regardless, Canadian, you've been very patient. Thank you so much, as has been everyone else. What did you have for us here?
I just have to say a couple things. First off, I think you need to buff that storm cannon there, because I was in a light tank and I had 2 rounds laying right beside me, and it only took me down to 80.
It was you.
85% light tank.
He was in a light tank, not a battle tank.
Oh.
It blew up the hull, it blew up the garrison house, it blew up the truck beside me, it killed all the infantry, and I was in the cupola and didn't do anything to me.
Well, that might actually be a detection problem? I don't know.
So it was a light tank?
Yeah. I was soloing it, and I was sitting in the cupola because it didn't have much fuel, and it's like, shit, those are 2 big-ass rounds just blowing up everything around me.
That's interesting.
Oh, also, so I know you probably wouldn't do it, like, maybe until you get, like, a way down the line, but have you ever thought of adding in, like, when you get 30 mils, have you ever thought of maybe getting a vehicle that will have a 30 mil, so it'll be easier to transport around? Like, have a turret on, say, the back of a Logi truck as, like, kind of anti-tank gun sort of setup?
I think that is unlikely as far as I know, just because, like, we don't want any individual, like, thing in the game to have, like, a multi-purpose, so, like, if you don't need you should have a convoy if you're worried about sort of getting attacked. That's really what it should be. Now, how do we encourage that? That's a bigger question. But having something that's sort of multi-purpose like that, I think is something that we've tried not to do in the past. But I'll tell you, again, like, those aren't decisions that I personally make, so take it with a grain of salt. I just work there.
You've said that multiple times, and I'm wondering, what do you have, like, final say on, if anything?
Well, Mark has final say on everything. So
that's true. Actually, he is the project lead. But what is, like, your what's your realm, Matt? Other than lore?
So, like, when it comes to map design
map design, that's right. You did say that.
Yeah. So I work with KFC, who's very much, like, involved in the game design, and Mark usually, and they have some kind of, like, you know, idea that they need to execute, and my job is to figure out how to make it happen. And then on top of that, I do all the writing for the game, and then I do all the visual effects and sound as well.
That's right.
So, and that's pretty much just me, like, all that stuff. So, except for map design, which we work with a couple people. Leon, who you guys probably know, he's an artist, but he went to school for level design, so he's pretty good, and so we'll tap him sometimes to do some work for us. But Yeah, so that's kind of my breakdown. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, actually. Like, I'll just do stuff when it's needed. Like, I'm the kind of person who, like, if something is needed, like, we didn't want to, like, sound is, like, a really interesting example, because, like, I didn't really know how to, like, make sounds. I didn't know how to be a sound designer before Fortified. I did a lot of the sounds in Fortified as well. But someone had to do it. And paying for sound effects is extremely tedious and expensive. It's not just like the cost, it's like working with people outside is really difficult for something like that. And if we just need something new, and especially given the amount of sounds that are in Foxhole, we just need to be able to do it. So I like to just pick up the slack and figure out problems that no one else is interested in doing.
A fixer.
Pretty much, yeah. But yeah.
Sorry,
so that's the question.
Sorry to tangent from your question, Canadian.
Oh, it's fine. Now, just for me, wise, I played your game quite a long time, and I don't know if I'll count for anything, but more of these southern maps seem more geared for defense, just how players use them, like Drowned Vale. Drowned Vale's a son of a bitch for armor. If you ever play on there, it's a son of a bitch for Warrens to get armor down there, because you have to either go on bridges or you have to do that. While some northern maps, you got all these different roads. It's easier for players to push up north than it is for guys to push down south. Either because of the player bases being slightly different from each other, or due to level design, I don't know. But I just find it harder for us to push south than it is for the other team to push north.
Who's us? Of the time. Who's us?
Like the Wardens.
The Wardens.
Like Warden armor and Warden kind of like player base. Either it's because we're a smaller player base or like less coordinated. It always seems to me like it's harder for the Warden player base to push south than it is for the Colonial player base to push north, which could be either better players on the Colonial side or just worse players on the Wardens. I don't know. But Urban Umbral is a bitch to push into because of all the trees. Drowned Vale is a hard-ass thing to do because, well, Drowned Vale is Drowned Vale. It's a drowned map, which I quite like it, but it's a pain in the ass to go through with armor.
I think that is the point, but I will go back to the tree thing. Clapfoot is one of the most incredible environmentalists I've seen of any game developer, because those trees, that foliage is indestructible. Cannot touch it. Battle tanks, don't even think about it.
So it's really interesting you say that, because we literally had someone in here saying the complete opposite stuff as you earlier from the other side, and that's the thing is I literally hear that from both sides, which to me says like I think it's working okay, and I know that's not what anybody wants to hear, and I've heard people say that that's not what they want to hear, but realistically, like that sounds like it's working to me if both sides are saying the same thing. Which I think it's Foxhole is a really sort of unique game of attrition, and attrition is the word. So let me pick out a couple of the examples that you said. So like Drowned Vale. Drowned Vale's a swamp. It's wetlands. If it's hard to like navigate, that's sort of the point. So I'm glad, but it is like we don't want every map to feel the same. If every map felt the same, if every map was Heartlands, I think the game would get stale really quick. And I really like Drowned Vale. I think there's still things that really need, like, I'm going to speak really candidly here. I think there's things that really need work, like Shallow Water, in particular. I think really needs work from a gameplay perspective, which does hold back Drowned Vale and sort of the intention for Drowned Vale. And in terms of Umbral Wildwood, I actually think it's pretty. If you've ever fought in Umbral Wildwood, there's nothing else in the game like it.
Yeah, it's either really fun at one point, but when you get to the tree line, it's a son of a bitch to push any colonials out, because they're always in a bush or in a tree, and they'll always come up behind you. It's like
I I hope it gives some empathy towards what soldiers might have had to deal with in the woods, and what maybe like Vietnam soldiers would have had to deal with, because that's kind of what happened. It's almost like sometimes I think like it's a little accurate, too accurate in terms of how things play out, and I think sometimes maybe we should lean a little bit more into like the game part of it. But that's a really subjective thing, and it's very difficult to be like, what does this person want, and what does this person want, and how do you get the right? How do you make the right choice?
And it's tough to say if there even is a right choice at all, just because, not to be, really nebulous about it, but really, because at some point, well, here's the thing, in early access, everyone feels like, and rightfully so, everyone feels like that everything needs to be fixed. Everything absolutely has to be this certain way. Oh, I'm not having fun at this particular moment in time. There's a problem, needs to be fixed. We're in early access. We can do it. We can fix it. And certainly that's great. That attitude is great for so much of this project. But at some point, you do have to think about, all right, am I really fighting the game? Is this experience really a problem? Or am I just having a problem with experience? That I don't know if that worked out, but grammatically. But at some point, maybe just have to accept it. But that's a dangerous thing to say, because then, well, what if you are accepting a problem? So that these things get worked out all the time, and Matt will probably never hear the end of it.
I also want to say, I want to say too that like there's this misconception that like I especially think there's a misconception among people who don't make games that like developers are like, we're like dumb and don't know what we're doing, or like we don't know when something is wrong. We know more about what's wrong than you guys ever will, and or quote unquote wrong, or the things we don't like. It's just a challenge to we have to make the right decisions for the project, and furthermore,
to make it go forward and gain traction.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody on the team and everybody who makes a game, I don't think, unless you're like some kind of just like trying to like scam people, like every game developer is trying to make a good game. No one is trying to make a bad game, and that's really important for people to remember.
I'll
get off my soapbox.
There is a very good example of the game development where a certain feeling of discomfort of a player was a central piece of the game, and everybody complained about it, so the game lost its meaning by inserting a difficulty slider. Basically, it became uninteresting.
What game was that?
So, Pathologic 2. A feeling of discomfort in a player might be a process of development, but a player that feels discomfort in a game that is in development is trying to get rid of this discomfort by not developing himself, but by easier way that does not include working or training in the game if he wants to get on competitive level.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Well, Canadian Cowboy, sorry for the soapboxing from all of us here, but it's good that you have these questions so that at least we know exactly what it is we're fighting about.
Can I just ask one more question, if that's alright?
Yeah, sure. We'll close with this.
Kick me out. Would you ever think, like way in the future, like how you had gas shells? Would you ever think of putting in airburst rounds? They would just explode just above the ground, and then they'd fire shrapnel out in every direction for artillery, like howitzers.
How would that differentiate from regular shells? And I know it would explode overhead.
I don't know how to say it, but in World War I, they had ones where they were just filled with ball bearings, and they would explode overhead, and then like thousands of these ball bearings would just fly out into the trenches and try and kill as many people as they were.
So it, like
it wouldn't impact on the ground, but it was
rudimentary.
Yeah, kind of like what the shrapnel shells do for the tanks.
It's
They're
like
just, sorry.
Oh, go on. I wanted to say it's like in real life it works like this. We have a mortar that shoots like over a curve and goes down, when artillery makes a more direct go onto the ordnance. So air burst explodes in the air and goes down. So it was used for an alternative for having a mortar that shoots more short range, but an artillery piece that shoots far away bursts and gets into the range. So what usage for it might be is that the regular artillery shell might not get so easily into the range, but you have to use an air boost round to kill people inside the trenches.
I think it's a cool idea. I know early on we talked about like bouncing Betty mines and stuff like that, which is a kind of a similar concept that pops up and throws ball bearings everywhere. I think it'd be kind of like if we made. I don't think we have a shrapnel shell, but if we like made one, it'd be pretty similar. I think the way we use shrapnel should also just kind of have that function. I think it should just have a little bit more. I mean, it already is anti-infantry, like everybody bleeds out, but it's like I think it could be maybe a little more elegant. But anyway, yeah, it's a really cool idea. I definitely think it's very Foxhole. Like I like the idea, especially when you were talking. I can't remember who it was. Someone was talking about having them affect everybody in the trenches. Like that makes a lot of sense. It's an anti-trench weapon.
Anyways, no matter what anybody says, I love this fucking game and helped me get over my depression. So yeah, I don't give a shit what anybody else says. Your game's going along fairly well. It's a floating boat. Just
Glad to
keep
hear
it
that.
floating.
That's awesome.
Catch you
Thank
later.
you.
All right. So, I mean, real quick, let me just say, yeah, the sound of death and massive warfare really helped him get over his depression. I'm just joking.
I mean, listen, like, at the end of the day, it is a game, and
yeah.
And war is a part of life, and this is something that, like, I come at odds with sometimes. Like, we make a game about war that's like really detailed. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm gonna be honest. I've always been interested in military games my whole life. I went from playing like Ace Combat to RTSs, everything. I played the old Call of Duties. Still love them today. I'd play them in a heartbeat. And I mean, I've always had a thing for them. Even in my darkest times, I had Call of Duty sitting right there. I was like,
Good description one guy gave it to me about Foxhole is that it is like an abusive lover. It beats you, it makes you feel bad, but you still
can't
come
stop
back because you're a slave to your own decisions.
All right. Well,
that's the best way to put it.
Well, that's all the time we have for, but thank you to our developers for sticking with us for 2 hours and 40 minutes of Zero Dark PressCorps. My goodness. But I think we'll close out with one last call from our dedicated listeners. So, ladies and gentlemen, why don't you ask Matt here your question as we close out? So, and we don't have a lot of time, so everyone just go ahead and start asking him right now.
Trains win.
Winter trains.
Yeah, trains win.
Trains win.
Trains?
Are you right?
Trains.
The answer is like maybe.
Aircraft.
Alright, good enough.
Good night and good fight, everyone.
Relics